Marvel, Fishing in the Skies. Starting with the Ghost Swordsman Legacy. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 326. Old Carter looked at Kinluo, with a bit of lingering fear in his words. If the power of Kinluo's arm was out of control just now, Old Carter didn't think that an old man in his twilight years and a ghost rider who was still wet behind the ears could deal with such power. I have my own way to suppress them, but they are very hungry recently and need some undead to replenish, especially those undead with deep sins. Kinluo showed a smile on his face, and his eyes were always on the contract of Saint Fangang when he spoke. The meaning is too obvious. Old Carter fell into silence at this time. He looked at the exquisite scroll contract in his hand. Finally, he shook his head solemnly. You are powerful beyond doubt. You can control such evil power without losing your nature, which is enough to prove that you have strong mental power. But even so, I still can't give you the contract of Saint Venganza. Those souls are too evil. One or two may not have much effect on you, but there are hundreds of millions of evil spirits. If your soul is polluted at that time, it will be a huge disaster for the whole world. Your danger is now greater than Mephisto. Kinluo couldn't help but have a helpless look on his face when he heard it. Old Carter's idea is actually correct. If it were someone else, it would be strange if his soul would not be affected after absorbing so many evil spirits. But Kinluo didn't worry about this. The evil spirits eaten by ghosts and gods have nothing to do with him. It's not him who absorbs those evil souls. As for whether the evil spirits will affect ghosts and gods, don't joke. When it comes to evil, the 7 ghosts and gods are the ancestors of these evil spirits. Let's not talk about anything else. The evil of the 7th evil god Brashu alone. All the evil spirits combined are not as good as one of its little fingernails. It's just that Kinluo knows these things, but others don't. He doesn't want to talk too much about ghosts and gods, so it became difficult to persuade the handsome old man Carter. Kinluo and Old Carter sat opposite each other. No one spoke, and the atmosphere became heavy for a while. Johnny looked at the two of them, with a helpless look on his face and said, I'm sorry to bother you. I wonder if you can explain to me what the Saint Venganza contract is. And what about the evil soul? I really look like a fool now. I don't understand anything. Old Carter looked at Johnny. His eyes eased a lot. For him, this young evil ghost rider is the only one in the world who can be connected with him. Although in his opinion, the connection with the spirit of revenge is no different from a curse. The contract of Saint Fanganza was signed in the sleeping place of thousands of sinful dead souls, which is called the Town of Death. I don't know where Mephisto sealed the sinful dead souls from hell and the human world, for what purpose, but this contract is a huge temptation for any demon. As long as you can withstand the power of these dead souls, you can create an existence that is not weaker than the devil of hell in a short period of time. It can even affect Mephisto's rule in hell. At the beginning, I decided to betray Mephisto, so I stole the contract of Saint Fanganza. For this, Mephisto was furious and sent many demons to hunt me down. It's a pity that his men are not my opponents. When Old Carter said the last sentence, there was obvious sarcasm and disdain on his face. Obviously, this was aimed at Mephisto. Johnny almost got excited when he heard it, and he wished that he was the one who stabbed Mephisto in the back. He also wanted to retaliate against Mephisto. However, Mephisto couldn't stand him, but he couldn't kill him. That feeling was really too relieved. After the excitement, Johnny looked at Kinluo, and he couldn't help but feel a little confused. He couldn't understand why Kinluo was so powerful, but he still had to risk the fall of his soul, absorb those sinful souls. Is it really worth it? Kinluo shrugged helplessly and said, I hope you can believe that my ghost hand can absorb those sinful souls without affecting me, but I can't tell you the specific reason. Old Carter looked at Kinluo and still shook his head. Obviously, Kinluo's words could not convince him. Looking at Old Carter, Kinluo really had a headache. If he used force, with the remaining power of Old Carter, He would never be his opponent. But Kinluo didn't want to use force against him. The first point is that Kinluo admired this old knight very much, and he was also one of his own. Secondly, he had to take care of Johnny's feelings. If he took action, Johnny would not say it on the surface, but he would definitely feel a little cold in his heart. Suddenly, Kinluo had a flash of inspiration in his mind, and he had a good idea. If he said this idea, maybe he could not only get the Saint Venganza contract, but also improve himself. Old Carter, if I can withstand the judgment of your Eye of Judgment, can you give me the Saint Venganza contract? Kinluo looked at Old Carter with a sharp look of excitement on his face. That's right. The good idea Kinluo thought of was the Eye of Judgment. That thing is a big horror for others, but for Kinluo, it is definitely a good way to improve the purity of the soul. It can also convince the Ghost Rider. Looking at Old Carter's astonished and incredible old face, Kinluo was secretly proud in his heart. It was really a good idea to kill two birds with one stone. I'm really a genius. Brother Kin, if you can't get the contract, you can't get the contract. You won't die. It's not good to be alive. Johnny looked at Kinluo with a look of tears and laughter and comforted him. He thought Kinluo must be crazy, so he took the initiative to take the Eye of Judgment. Chapter 143 Judgment Baptism, Sin. That's it. As a contemporary Ghost Rider, Johnny is very familiar with the power of the Eye of Judgment. He has used the power of the Eye of Judgment a lot during this period. As a result, without exception, no one can withstand the flame of judgment. Those who are infected are basically doomed to die. Of course, except for Kinluo. Johnny thought of this and looked at Kinluo with resentment. The backlash at the beginning was not so easy to bear. Even if the spirit of vengeance suffered 99.99% of the damage, but that 0.01% also made him feel miserable. It took a whole day of headache to ease. At the same time, Johnny's heart was a little worried, and he couldn't help but secretly guess that Kinluo would not want to use his own powerful power to directly backfire on Old Carter. Old Carter is not him, with a complete spirit of vengeance. Now he only has some residual power. Once the backlash really happens, I'm afraid that Old Carter will die on the spot. Kinluo saw Johnny's idea instantly and rolled his eyes at him, saying, "What are you thinking? If I want to grab the Saint Van Gogh's contract directly, why not just do it directly? Why risk the Eye of Judgment?" Although it's a bit heartbreaking, to be honest, with my current strength, even if you two come together, you won't be my opponent. Johnny's strange expression faded after hearing this, and he nodded in agreement. Old Carter also nodded. There's nothing to be embarrassed about if you're not as strong as others. In fact, Old Carter just had similar ideas to Johnny. After all, he saw the scene when Johnny used the Eye of Judgment on Kinluo. Have you really thought about it? Once the Eye of Judgment is activated, even if I want to stop it, it's impossible. Old Carter looked at Kinluo and said with a serious face, "Of course, but the premise is that if I can withstand the test of your Eye of Judgment, then give me the Saint Van Gogh's contract." Kinluo said with a serious face. "Okay, but the premise is that you really undergo the test of the Eye of Judgment." Old Carter agreed very happily this time, but he emphasized the word really. He believed that with Kinluo's strength, there was a way to evade the judgment of the Eye of Judgment. Kinluo did not speak, but just made an okay gesture, and then sat steadily on the chair, looking like he was ready to be slaughtered. Old Carter let out a long breath of turbid air, and came to Kinluo with a solemn face. Inevitably, he felt a little nervous. Chapter 327. It's crazy. The blue flame that was full of vitality turned into a raging hellfire. From protection to judgment, it was eventually used by Mephisto. So face the power in your body. In fact, your goals are the same. Ghost Rider also doesn't like Mephisto. If you can awaken a crazy angel and get its real power, then your troubles will be solved perfectly. Kinluo's words made Johnny think deeply. He looked at his hands and was speechless for a long time. Chapter 141 Old Carter and Street Venganza Covenant. In a cemetery somewhere on the outskirts of the city, Old Carter was wearing a denim suit and carrying a shovel to help the surrounding graves add soil from time to time. Some were weeding or sorting out fruit tributes. He looked like a qualified gravekeeper. Seeing this scene, no one would believe that this harmless old man was the last generation of Ghost Rider. Old Carter, who was weeding, suddenly looked up and looked into space with a slightly uncertain expression, but he soon regained his composure. In a few seconds, Kinluo took Johnny to the entrance of the cemetery. "Johnny, you are back, and this is Mr. Kinluo. Please come in." Old Carter looked at Kinluo and Johnny with a calm smile on his face. Kinluo was not surprised at all that Old Carter recognized his identity. After all, he is an old monster who has lived for hundreds of years, and it is normal to have some special channels. However, it is not polite to come without returning the favor. Since the other party has made his identity clear, Kinluo also said directly, "Old Carter, the last generation of Ghost Rider, I have heard of your name for a long time." It seems that Mr. Kinluo has told Johnny my identity. Well, I shouldn't play any mystery. Old Carter smiled helplessly and turned to walk into the house, looking at the other party's ordinary back. Even though Johnny already knew the truth, there was still some disbelief on his face. It was hard to imagine that such an ordinary old man was actually his predecessor. Kinluo patted Johnny on the shoulder, then he followed Old Carter into the cemetery hut. Kinluo looked at everything around him. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Old Carter is worthy of being a person who has lived for hundreds of years. The things inside are all antiques. Basically, no modern products can be seen. He protects these antiques very well and carefully. And there are many extraordinary things inside. Some are angels or demons. And there is even a spearhead with the breath of Asgard. It is stained with black blood. Those with the breath of special items have more or less traces of fighting. If Kinluo guessed correctly, these things are the remains of the companions who had fought together with Old Carter. And the graves outside are also the graves of the owners of these items. "You came to me, or for the matter of the spirit of revenge?" Old Carter took out a kettle, poured water for Kinluo and Johnny, and asked. Johnny didn't speak. He didn't know how to face Old Carter now. Kinluo took a sip of water, shook his head and said, "You guessed wrong. I'm not here for the spirit of vengeance." To be honest, the problem of the spirit of vengeance is actually very easy to solve. As long as we can deal with the angel's madness and find our original intention, all problems will be solved. Carter looked at Kinluo, with a flash of surprise in his eyes. He knew very well how powerful Kinluo was, and he also knew about Kinluo's affairs with Mephisto. But Old Carter never thought that Kinluo actually knew so much about the spirit of vengeance. However, for Kinluo's easy solution, Old Carter did not agree. It's easy to say, just find the angel's original intention. But in fact, it's as difficult as ascending to heaven. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been the same for hundreds of years. At most, he would have exerted the full power of the spirit of vengeance. Kinluo could see that Old Carter was different, but he didn't explain too much, and it was not easy to explain too much. You can't tell Old Carter that he came through, so he knows how to make the crazy angel return to his original intention. "So, Mr. Kinluo, what is your purpose in coming to see me?" Old Carter picked up the water cup, took a sip of water and asked. "The Saint Venganza contract," Kinluo said and pointed directly to the shovel that had just been put down behind Old Carter. Crack! As soon as Kinluo finished speaking, Old Carter's eyes widened instantly, and the cup in his hand fell to the ground and shattered directly. Johnny was a little surprised. Since he met Old Carter, this was the first time he saw this old man behave so badly. This old man has always been calm. Is it because of the Saint Venganza contract? What on earth could make Old Carter lose his composure like this? Johnny looked in the direction of Kinluo's finger, and all he could see was a shovel. There were thousands of doubts in his heart, but Johnny saw that the two of them had no intention of speaking. He did not make a sound to disturb them. Old Carter was silent, silently picked up the broken pieces of the cup on the ground, carefully wrapped them with a handkerchief, and placed them on the table. "Excuse me, this set has been out of print for more than 70 years. Alas, Old Carter murmured as if he was talking to himself, and finally sighed. He stood up, picked up the shovel, and twisted it hard. Snap! Suddenly the wooden handle of the shovel broke, and a scroll with mysterious patterns appeared from the connection between the wooden handle and the shovel. Johnny looked a little weird, and he couldn't help but secretly give a thumbs up to Old Carter in his heart. What a talent! He was able to think of hiding the scroll in such a place. Even if Johnny didn't know what the so-called Saint Venganza contract was, It could be seen from old Carter's performance that this thing was definitely not ordinary. Kinlawo was very calm. He had known the location of the contract for a long time, otherwise he would not have pointed it out so directly. Human, what do you want this contract for? You must know that it has no effect on humans, unless, old Carter said. His eyes shifted to Kinlawo's pure white left hand. When Kinlawo fought with the Ghost Rider that day, the feeling that hand gave him was very special, evil and powerful, but there was also a kind of complex power. And at that time, the hand was not white, but like a devil's claw, unless it's for it. Kinlawo smiled and showed his ghost hand directly. He had no intention of hiding it. The sudden appearance of the scarlet ghost hand brought a huge impact, even for an existence like old Carter. His pupils couldn't help shrinking. Suddenly, Kinlawo's ghost seemed to be stimulated by the two evil spirit riders. They became restless in an instant. Ghosts have always been quite interested in the soul power of the spirit of revenge. Kinlawo frowned slightly, and his mind moved, and the restless ghosts were immediately suppressed. Chapter 142 Huge reaction. Good idea equals looking for death? The breath of ghosts and gods only appeared for a moment, and was suppressed by Kinlawo. But even so, the reactions of the new and old evil spirit riders were quite large. Carter retreated, and there was a faint flash of red fire in his eyes. And Johnny's reaction was even more intense, and the spirit of revenge that had been retracted burst out directly. Half of his face turned into a burning skull. He almost transformed on the spot. Fortunately, the spirit of vengeance had consumed a lot of power before, and it was not at its peak. Johnny tried hard to suppress it back into his body. It's really scary. The power in your arms is more evil and powerful than Mephisto. It's hard to imagine how you suppressed them. Chapter 328. Yes, who made him sign that damn soul contract? His father was not saved, and he lost his lover because of it. Kinlawo looked at the painful Johnny and shook his head. Speaking of which, this guy is also a poor man. If we look at the original plot, although Johnny defeated the witch-heart demon at this time and escaped from Mephisto's control in a short time, but there is still no way to completely get rid of the other party. Under the traction of the soul contract, everything he has now will be lost again, and he lives alone in this world. It's so pitiful that it can't be more pitiful. This also caused Johnny's future to become neurotic and almost confused. I need your strength. Come with me. I will help you solve all the problems. Believe me, Mephisto will die in front of you soon, and you will be satisfied with the death. Kinlawo squatted down, patted Johnny's shoulder heavily and said, Kinlawo has never denied his idea of using the power of the Ghost Rider. It's just that he is different from Mephisto. The pit. If Johnny becomes his younger brother, he will be his own. Kinlawo has always been generous to his own people, and has never been stingy. Chapter 140 The old man who was successfully subdued and guided. Johnny raised his head slightly and looked at Kinlawo. His expression was a little strange. He didn't expect Kinlawo to suddenly make such a request. As the saying goes, once bitten by a snake, you will be afraid of the rope for 10 years. After experiencing what happened to Mephisto, it was really hard for him to believe other people's promises. But Johnny still had a good impression of Kinlawo. Although he had abused the Ghost Rider, that was also what Johnny wanted to see. I don't know how cool it was at that time. He didn't have much good feelings for the Ghost Rider and his body. Johnny was entangled in Kinlawo's invitation. He hoped to find a backer, or at least a comrade in arms. Kinlawo, who was also a human, was obviously the most suitable choice. But what if the other party was the same as Mephisto? His understanding of Kinlawo was only through those videos and the previous encounter. Kinlawo saw Johnny's hesitation, so he immediately decided to add a wave of explosive material. Roshan, you should have gotten her back now. Believe me, as long as your soul contract with Mephisto is still there, you will still lose your lover, Kinlawo said with a serious face. Johnny's hair almost exploded when he heard this. He shook his head desperately. Impossible. I will not lose Roshan again. Absolutely not. Nothing is impossible. Johnny, didn't you leave Roshan in a confused way at the beginning? You loved her very much at the beginning. Otherwise you wouldn't want to elope. You will never be at peace unless Mephisto dies. Kinlawo patted Johnny's shoulder heavily and said. Johnny was silent now. Just as Kinlawo said, he loved Roshan more and more desperately at the beginning. He was even ready to elope, but he left her in a confused way. He originally thought that it was because his father's death hit him too hard, but later he found out that it was not the case. It was all the work of that damn guy Mephisto. Mr. Kinlawo, why do you know so much about me? Have you investigated me? Johnny still lowered his head. His voice sounded a little dull. If I don't even know your experience, how can I be your boss? And can Mephisto's affairs be investigated? Kinlawo asked with a mysterious smile. Okay, Mr. Kinlawo, I can work hard for you, but the premise is that you really kill Mephisto. Before that, I will stay by your side, but I won't fight for you. I hope you can understand. Johnny raised his head and stared at Kinlawo, almost biting his back teeth to make a decision. Deal. Believe me, at most half a year, at least 1 month, Mephisto's life will be over. Kinlawo grinned, stretched out his hand, his eyes full of relief. Finally, the strongest worker was fooled. It was not easy. Okay. Johnny also stretched out his hand and shook Kinlawo's hand tightly. Now Kinlawo's team's strength has reached a new level because of Johnny's joining. The luxuriousness of the lineup is incomparable even if Nick Fury's Avengers plan is completed. Moreover, because of Kinlawo, Nick Fury's Avengers plan is almost completely pulled in his pants. The big three is almost equivalent to 2 standing beside him. There is also a Hulk. How to play with Nick Fury. Play with his big black head? Johnny, what do you think of the Ghost Rider in your body now? Kinlawo pulled Johnny up and asked. What else can I think? I can only control his power as much as possible. Recently, with the help of an old man, my current condition is much better. Johnny showed a helpless bitter smile on his face. The help of the old man? You are not talking about Carter Slay, right? Kinlawo looked at Johnny with a strange look and asked. Mr. Kinlawo, do you know old Carter too? Johnny was also a little surprised when he saw Kinlawo directly say the full name of old Carter. Of course I know him. That old man is not an ordinary person. And you can call me Brother Kin or Kinlawo in the future. Mr. Kinlawo is not necessary. Kinlawo patted Johnny on the shoulder and said. Okay, Brother Kin, how come old Carter is not an ordinary person? Isn't he just a knowledgeable old man? Although I have gained a lot of inspiration from him, he has not shown any special power. Looking at Johnny's surprised and puzzled expression, Kinlawo's smile became strange. It seems that the old man Carter did not tell you his true identity. He is actually your predecessor, the Ghost Rider of the previous generation. He is already hundreds of years old. Otherwise, do you think that a knowledgeable old man can guide you casually? You underestimate the content of the Ghost Rider too much. Johnny was stunned when he heard this. He never dreamed that the old man who guided him these days would be the Ghost Rider of the previous generation. Then a fierce light flashed in Johnny's eyes. Brother Kin, let's go and kill him now. This lackey of Mephisto, he deceived me. I don't know what ulterior motives he has. Hey, who told you that he is a lackey of Mephisto? Kinlawo looked at Johnny who was about to bite someone and said quickly. Old Carter, isn't he the last generation of Ghost Rider? Isn't that Mephisto's lackey? Johnny said as if it was a matter of course. Kinlawo rolled his eyes. Aren't you also a Ghost Rider? Are you a lackey of Mephisto? Johnny was speechless for a moment, not knowing what to say. Don't be too paranoid. For you, old Carter is an absolutely good person. Mephisto suffered a great loss at the hands of old Carter. It's quite interesting to say that you Ghost Riders don't know if this profession is poisonous. You are all rebellious. None of you want to deal with Mephisto. Johnny ignored the ridicule in Kinlawo's words. He was secretly relieved. To be honest, he really didn't want to deal with old Carter. After all, he had saved him and helped him. Of course, the premise of all this is that the other party has nothing to do with Mephisto. There is one more thing. Don't think that the power of Ghost Rider is Mephisto's hell power. In fact, the source of Ghost Rider's power is himself. Ghost Rider used to be an angel who maintained peace and fulfilled his duties. It's a pity that he was deceived and fell into hell. Chapter 329. He immediately doubted his life. How long has it been since this powerful young man became so powerful? If this young man was a river before, He is now a vast ocean. He used to be able to fight Kinluo, although the result would basically end in failure, but at least he could fight. But now he is standing in front of Kinluo, and he doesn't even have the courage to fight. As for the Ghost Rider, his performance was even more exaggerated. After confirming Kinluo's appearance, the flames on his body dimmed directly. Then the Ghost Rider disappeared, replaced by Johnny with a confused face. Midnight Daddy was also a little confused, but he quickly came to his senses, and the look he gave Kinluo became extremely strange and mixed with admiration. He fought hard for the Ghost Rider. He solved it with just a look. The gap is really too big. Kinluo was also confused. He touched his nose and felt that he was not that scary. How could he scare the Ghost Rider back directly? Plop! Johnny fell heavily to the ground, with pungent white smoke coming out of his body. He still had a very deep impression of Kinluo, so Johnny stretched out his hand to Kinluo. Kinluo instantly understood what Johnny meant. He smiled helplessly and shook his head. He took out a large bucket directly from the inventory. It was a bit like the large vat for pickling sauerkraut in the rural areas of northeast China. It was full of clear water. With a splash sizzle as the clear water poured on Johnny's body, it suddenly made the sound of red-hot steel entering the water. The hot steam was steaming. Johnny's face showed a comfortable expression. Kinluo nodded secretly when he saw this. Johnny has now adapted to the power of the Ghost Rider. At least he will not fall into a coma directly after the transformation like before. Thank you, Mr. Kinluo. This is the second time. Johnny looked at Kinluo and said seriously, "Do you know me?" Kinluo looked at Johnny with some surprise. He didn't expect that he could call out his name at the right time. "I was lucky enough to witness the video of you fighting the giant green monster. I am actually your fan," Johnny said after a wry smile. Chapter 139 Love is a Light. Follow me. Kinluo nodded in sudden realization after hearing Johnny's words. At the same time, he just realized that Johnny is still the famous Hot Johnny at this stage. Although he is a motorcycle stunt athlete, he is also a superstar. His status and position are quite high, so it is probably not difficult for him to obtain some information that ordinary people cannot obtain. "Young man, I think we should talk." At this time, the voice of Midnight Daddy sounded, interrupting the conversation between Kinluo and Johnny. Kinluo waved his hand and said, "Midnight Father, we don't have much communication between us, let alone anything to talk about. Ghost Rider probably found you because of the hybrid. It just so happens that there are some things I want to tell you first. Now I am already at war with Mephisto. I just killed a wisp of his soul incarnation and his son 2 days ago, and the hybrids helped the evil and killed all the neighbors around me. This matter was caused by me after all, so I have to avenge them. So even if there is no Ghost Rider to slaughter the hybrid demons, I still want to kill all the hybrid demons in this city." Hearing what Kinluo said, Midnight Father's face changed many times, and finally only a little helpless color was left. "Young man, after what happened last time, I am no longer in charge of balance. I do have a hybrid here, but it has just been killed by the Ghost Rider. There is only one left, and I don't want her to be hurt." Kinluo was a little surprised. I didn't expect Midnight Father to no longer get involved in the affairs of heaven and hell. Then which hybrid would make him so determined to protect? "Who is the hybrid you are talking about?" "It's me." Kinluo just finished speaking, and before Midnight Daddy could answer, a tender female voice came out of the Midnight Bar. He looked over and saw a very beautiful female hybrid walking out of the bar. Kinluo knew this female hybrid, and it turned out to be Constantine's old lover, the succubus Ellie. "Tsk, it's you." Kinluo pouted twice, then looked at Midnight Daddy and asked, "It seems that you came forward to protect her for Constantine's sake?" Midnight Daddy shook his head, just stretched out his hand and hugged the succubus Ellie who came over. The meaning is self-evident. Kinluo was stunned for a moment. At the same time, a lyric sounded in his mind. "Love is a light green to you panic, it's only been a short time, and the scumbag Kang has been scummed by others." By the way, he also wore a green hat. Kinluo came back to his senses, and his mouth twitched, but he didn't want to get involved in Constantine's mess, and he had no interest in getting involved. "We are acquaintances anyway, so I'll give you a face and let it go this time." Kinluo stretched out 2 fingers and said, 2 days. I won't care about you, but after 2 days I will clean up this city again. I won't let go of all the hybrids. If you are still here by then, even Jesus can't stop you, I said. After the last words fell, Kinlawo burst out with obvious murderous intent. In an instant, Tsukabaseli seemed to have returned to her hometown. The feeling of being in a sea of corpses and blood made her terrified, but she was a little dissatisfied with Kinlawo's dominance. But because of her previous experience, she didn't dare to get angry with Kinlawo, so she looked at Midnight Daddy beside her. Midnight Daddy just patted her soft back of the hand, then looked at Kinlawo and nodded. We will pack up and leave New York now. Thank you for your mercy. Kinlawo waved his hand and said nothing. In this way, Midnight Daddy took the surprised Tsukabaseli back to the Midnight Bar, and closed the door. From then on, the two of them never appeared in New York again. Kinlawo had never seen them anyway. Turning around, Kinlawo looked at Johnny beside him and asked, "What do you mean, Johnny? What are your plans next?" "Plans? Haha." Johnny smiled bitterly and said helplessly, "What plans can I have? Of course, I will try my best to restore my previous life." "Do you really want to be a Ghost Rider, Hell Ranger?" When saying the last two titles, Johnny obviously had some sarcasm in his words. "Don't think too much. Some things are destined. You have become a Ghost Rider, unless there is an extremely special method. Otherwise you can't return to normal. Even if you want to return to normal, the guy in your body will not allow it. When night falls, you will be extremely eager for those sinful souls, and it will be difficult for you to control it." Kinlawo looked at Johnny and said with a serious face, "I know, but I believe I will find a solution. I want to be a normal person." "What a bullshit Ghost Rider. What a bullshit spirit of vengeance. Let them go to hell." Looking at Johnny with bulging veins, Kinlawo smiled and spread his hands and said, "I am a ghost, and everything is fate and not in our control. You mistakenly believed in Mephisto and signed that labor capital contract. Who can you blame?" Kinlawo's words were like a sharp arrow, piercing his heart directly. Johnny opened his mouth, but in the end, he didn't say anything. He squatted down and grabbed his hair hard. His teeth made a crunching sound due to the intense friction. Chapter 330. What can Kinlawo do? He has to satisfy them, but he is just playing with their own lives. Normally, although Kinlawo killed a lot of hybrid demons, they are only a part of the hybrids in this city. There are still many hybrids active in the streets. Kinlawo sensed the existence of hybrids around him more than once, but at that time, Kinlawo was too lazy to pay attention to them, so he didn't care. But what is the situation today? Could it be that the hybrids knew that he was going to kill and ran away in advance? Impossible. They don't have Kinlawo's ability to sense malice. Puzzled, Kinlawo decided to go to the Midnight Bar to have a look. The Midnight Daddy is also a very capable wizard, and his bar used to be a gathering place for hybrids. Maybe he can find a little clue from him, because the location of the Midnight Bar is special and remote. And it is also protected by a special power similar to the formation, so it is not easy for ordinary people to find it. Of course, these restrictions are only for some ordinary people and weak chickens. Kinlawo's mind can completely ignore these tricks. Go forward at full speed. Kinlawo came to the vicinity of the Midnight Bar in a short while. Just when he wanted to break through the defense directly, he suddenly noticed the fluctuations of two forces. He was quite familiar with both of these forces. One was the witchcraft power of the Midnight Daddy, and the other one was actually the power of the Ghost Rider. After Kinlawo felt the fiery power, he immediately understood it in his heart. No wonder the hybrids have become so rare. It seems that someone has started the hunting time before him. Think about it. The Ghost Rider is a person who can't tolerate any sand, no matter what kind of demon or half-demon you are. As long as you are related to the devil, the Ghost Rider will directly send you back to hell, or it will be a gift package of ashes. It has been a short time since I separated from the Ghost Rider. With the ability of the Ghost Rider, it is estimated that he has recovered long ago. Without the enemies such as the Witch Heart Demon, he must have directly turned on the scavenger mode. Chapter 138. Midnight Daddy vs. Ghost Rider. Scared back? Regarding the fact that the Ghost Rider robbed his target, Kinlawo didn't care at all, but was happy to see it. As a younger brother, It's only natural for me to help my elder brother deal with some troubles. However, Kinlawo had a good impression of Midnight Daddy. So after thinking about it, he decided to stop the fight. It is estimated that the two of them were tit for tat because of the hybrid. As long as the hybrid is dealt with, there is no need for the two to fight, although there is a suspicion of Yidayu taking sides. But there is no way. Who let the Ghost Rider be his younger brother? He waved his hand to break the defensive barrier. After Kinlawo walked into the block, everything became different. When chasing Poseidon, he was too anxious and didn't pay attention to the changes around him. Now it seems that Midnight Daddy is really good. Now Kinlawo really feels like entering a new world. At this time, the fluctuations of witchcraft and hellfire power became more intense. Kinlawo didn't hesitate anymore, and appeared on the street of Midnight Bar in a flash. I saw that the Ghost Rider was fighting fiercely with Midnight Daddy. The chains in the hands of Ghost Rider kept attacking Midnight Daddy. Midnight Daddy held a crystal skull and kept chanting spells. A huge skull protective shield condensed around it. At the moment when the chain was pulled over, the skull seemed to be alive and bit the chain directly in its mouth. It swallowed it down with a crunch, a bit like eating those instant noodles. But the skull protective shield obviously couldn't digest the hellfire chain, and soon the whole shield was burning. But Midnight Daddy was not in a hurry. Instead, he cut his middle finger with a knife, dripped blood on the skull and continued to chant spells. The action was done in one go, and the speed was extremely fast, obviously with a high degree of proficiency. As the blood merged into the crystal skull, the skull protective shield surrounding Midnight Daddy instantly turned blood red, from the original defensive attribute to bloodthirstiness and violence. The bloody huge skull burned with hellfire and rushed directly towards the Ghost Rider. A large and a small burning skull soon met in midair. The scene was like a grandfather meeting his grandson. It was inexplicably a little funny. Ghost Rider was not afraid of the huge skull and rushed up directly. Boom! A violent explosion occurred at the moment of the collision between the two, and the flames shot up into the sky, almost illuminating the entire street. Bang! Ghost Rider fell heavily to the ground, and the flames all over his body flickered, as if they were about to go out at any time. But it soon returned to normal. It was as if nothing had happened just now. The leather clothes that were damaged by the explosion also returned to normal. There was no way. Ghost Rider's recovery state was so abnormal. Relatively speaking, Midnight Daddy was not so good. There were already many burn marks on his body. There were several more burn marks on his originally dark face. What was more important was the crystal skull in his hand. There was a very obvious fine crack where he had just dripped blood. The crack was not big, but it was too conspicuous on the pure and flawless crystal skull. It is said that this crystal skull was made of the skull of Midnight Daddy's sister. It is not known whether it is true or not, but Midnight Daddy obviously cherishes his crystal skull. Looking at the cracks on it, this guy's eyes turned red, and the veins on his neck and forehead bulged high. It is obvious that he has entered a state of rage. Wizard, hand over those demons. I won't kill you. The Ghost Rider shook his burning head, pointed at Midnight Daddy and said in a deep voice, "And you am." Midnight Daddy cursed angrily and directly cut a big hole in his palm. However, just when he wanted to put the bloody palm on the crystal skull and recite the spell, an inappropriate voice sounded, "Hey, give me face and stop it." Kinlawo flashed from the street with a peaceful smile on his face and appeared between the two. "Is it you?" ×2 Midnight Daddy and the Ghost Rider said almost in unison. There was a look of surprise on their faces. None of them expected Kinlawo to appear suddenly. Midnight Daddy frowned and was about to say something, but when he felt the power in Kinlawo's body, his eyes widened instantly. He even rubbed his eyes and looked at Kinlawo again, after confirming that the man in front of him was the one who had killed Boz Iza. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 331. Loki swallowed hard, and a bad premonition rose in his heart. He looked up and saw the huge thunder that was about to burst out. WTF? Exclamation mark. Boom. With Loki's exclamation, The thunder and lightning fell down and hit him directly. He didn't even have a chance to dodge. Coincidentally, the place where his feet stepped was exactly where Thor had just chiseled a crack. The powerful thunder force quickly penetrated the rainbow bridge along the crack. Boom! The rainbow bridge broke apart and burst out with great power. Loki, who had been severely injured, was blown away again. Thor was also affected by this powerful impact and flew back 4 or 5 meters. But compared to Loki, the damage Thor suffered was nothing at all. The crisis came at this moment. Because the rainbow bridge was destroyed, there was no more protective force around, and a strong suction came from the broken part. Loki was hit hard one after another, and it was good enough that he didn't lose consciousness. Now he was completely unable to resist this suction. Thor was also a little dizzy from the shock, so the two brothers fell into the endless universe together. Fortunately, at the critical moment, before Thor thought of his father Odin appeared and reached out to grab Thor in his hand. At this time, Thor also regained consciousness and grabbed the falling Loki in his hand at the first time. The three of them formed a string. Oh Din, my father you. Loki was also very surprised to see Odin. He tried to say something with his seriously injured body, but he saw Odin's disappointed look when he looked at him. In an instant, Loki's mentality exploded directly. He did so much just to prove that he could do it. But he got his father's disappointment. Loki smiled bitterly. Using the last bit of strength, he broke free from Thor's palm and fell into the endless universe. No, Thor roared and wanted to catch Loki, but at this moment, he was pulled up by Odin. Thor knelt at the broken bridge, his heart full of regret and grief. Thinking about what had happened before, he kept muttering, "Fate, what is fate?" Odin was also in grief at this time, but his eyes were very calm. Thor didn't know, but he knew too well that the physique of the frost giants was not that simple, and falling into the universe would not bring death. And from the fragments of the future, his youngest son was not only fine, but also found a very powerful backer. Chapter 137 Hunting Time, Midnight Bar. Again Kinlo lay on the sofa, looking at the dusk outside the window. His face was full of comfort. It has been a few days since Thor returned home. During this time, the cooling time of the fishing rod lottery has been ready. But Kinlo was not as anxious to fish as before. He decided to wait. After all, the blessing of the fishing rod this time is too important. Extra fishing rewards, and the opportunity to fish for a higher level item buff. He didn't want to touch the white fishing rod. What if Yango's gloves and Xialongnu's foot wraps come? Kinlo had no place to cry. Although there was an additional buff bonus, the number of white fishing rods had been reduced, which in turn increased the chance of obtaining high-level fishing rods. But it was still not guaranteed, so Kinlo planned to save 2 more buffs that increased the probability and use them together. In that case, the effect would definitely be much better than it is now. If you can really get a colored fishing rod, it would not be the rhythm of heaven. It would be directly Hashin. Right? Kin, what do you want to eat tonight? Do you want me to make some pizza? At this time, May Parker's voice suddenly sounded. The last bit of afterglow of the sun also disappeared in the sky. The sky was completely dark. Sister Mai, you and Peter should have a simple meal today, or go out to eat. I have something to do. Kinlo stood up, his bones crackling, and a hint of coldness flashed in his eyes. May Parker was stunned. Why did his man suddenly become murderous for no reason? Kin, who provoked you again? Do you need our help? May Parker frowned and said, Yes, I can help too. Mr. Stark has been in the studio recently, and I am a little bored. Spider-Man poked his head out of the room and echoed excitedly, Get lost. I think you are still too idle. Do you want me to increase your bang? Before Kinlo finished speaking, Spider-Man had guessed what would happen next, so he decisively closed the door, and his movements were so fast that the door frame almost shook off. Kinlo rolled his eyes when he saw this. Then he looked at May Parker and said, Don't worry, Sister Mai, it's just a small matter. You don't need to do anything. You were too lazy to move before, and you should stretch your muscles today. Okay, then, be careful. Don't overdo it. After all, you are in the city. May Parker smiled and nodded, and didn't force it. As for safety instructions, She hadn't said it again after the last incident. The Lord of Hell was killed by his own man. There was really no need to worry about his safety. It was better to worry about the unlucky guy who was about to be in trouble and the neighbors around. Kinlawo made an okay gesture and flew out of the window. New York at night can be said to be a city of sin. There are disharmonious factors everywhere, except for some behaviors that he didn't like. Kinlawo would take action to solve them, most of them. He didn't even look at them. At this time, he just concentrated on finding his target. Soon a handsome man was spotted by him. The man walked in the night in a decent suit, and there didn't seem to be anything unusual. But if you look closely, you will find that the man's eyes are a little unusual. A faint trace of red can be seen, which makes his originally elegant aura more evil. Kinlawo fell from the sky and landed directly in front of the man without any cover-up. "This sir, you," the man wanted to say something, but when he saw Kinlawo's face clearly, the whole person froze. Then he turned around and was about to run, but his speed was too slow. A ray of Kinlawo's sword energy directly gave him a gift package of soul smashing. The man's body fell heavily to the ground, and soon revealed an ugly posture, and then turned into ashes. "That's right, Kinlawo came out today to hunt hybrids. These half-demons will be a disaster sooner or later if they stay in the city." At that time, Kinlawo said that he would make all the hybrids in the city soul-smashing, but he was not kidding. Hunting time officially started. However, a few hours passed. At about 3 o'clock in the morning, Kinlawo almost dug the entire New York block 3 feet deep. The result was mediocre, only killing a dozen hybrid demons and 2 hybrid angels. Originally, Kinlawo didn't want to do anything to the 2 hybrid angels, but he couldn't help but want to die. After seeing Kinlawo kill their lovers, they rushed over directly and wanted to fight to the death. Chapter 332. His Hellfire attribute is very suitable for the Rue Metal in some ways. Think about it, the transformed Ghost Rider, wearing the Rue suit, plus the unique flame blessing of the Ghost Rider. Wow, it's so handsome. Kinlawo thought of that handsome scene, and his saliva almost stayed. It was a killer against men. Asgard. Thor returned to Asgard with his friends. He couldn't rest for a moment, and he couldn't wait to know why Loki did such a thing. He rushed straight into the palace and saw Loki holding the Eternal Spear. As the saying goes, enemies are particularly jealous when they meet. The relationship between the two is much more complicated than that of enemies. When Loki saw Thor appear, he picked up the Eternal Spear without saying a word and attacked Thor directly. The strength of the two of them was almost consumed in the previous battle. So this battle can be said to be a fight between chickens. Thor was reckless and Loki was shady. The two really fought evenly. However, Thor's Mjolnir is a divine weapon that fits him very well. Compared with Loki, who just mastered the Spear of Eternity, it is much more skilled and powerful. In the end, Thor was better. He suppressed Loki with Mjolnir. However, Loki started to play dirty again. He wanted to use the power of Asgard and the Rainbow Bridge to completely destroy the planet of the Frost Giants. Loki believed that the reason why he could not inherit the throne was because of his bloodline. So Loki shifted the focus of the problem to his past, trying his best to erase those deeds and bloodlines that he thought were disgraceful. His biological father and race became obstacles to his glory, so he had to destroy them. And he also knew that Thor would not watch him cause such a large number of kills. He would definitely stop him, and then he would definitely win. Just as Loki expected, Thor was anxious when he saw such a scene. He swung Mjolnir and smashed it towards the Rainbow Bridge, but his current strength was really too weak. It was impossible to break the Rainbow Bridge like in the original plot. It took a lot of effort to only create a few cracks. Loki couldn't just watch Thor smash the bridge. He kept sneaking and harassing from the side. He almost killed Thor several times and ended the battle. Bang! Another hammer fell. The Rainbow Bridge still had a few more cracks. However, Thor's hands, because of excessive force, broke open at the knuckles, and blood flowed on Thor's hammer. Thor's hammer flashed, wanting to help its master, but the power in its body was empty. The heart was willing but the strength was not enough. Puff. However, at this moment, Loki's Eternal Spear pierced Thor's shoulder, and then pulled it out violently, bringing up a blood arrow. Even the tough guy Thor couldn't help but groan in the face of such a heavy blow. Coincidentally, when Loki pulled out the Eternal Spear, a piece of Thor's armor flew away. Dang! With a crisp sound, a gold and silver coin fell on the Rainbow Bridge. Chapter 136 Destiny. The gold and silver coin of destiny was spinning on the ground. Under the reflection of the Rainbow Bridge, the coin of destiny, which originally exuded a mysterious atmosphere, became even more mysterious and colorful. It was particularly eye-catching. The two brothers Thor and Loki were all attracted by the coin of destiny. The moment Thor saw the coin of destiny, his eyes lit up. Just now, he was so focused on Loki that he had long forgotten that he had the coin of destiny. Now it's good. With the power of the coin of destiny, Thor has the confidence to smash the Rainbow Bridge with a hammer and stop the horrible slaughter. However, just when Thor wanted to grab the coin of destiny in his hand, Loki, who had the upper hand, took the coin of destiny first. Thor immediately became a little anxious and stood up to snatch it, but was shot away by Loki. "My stupid brother, do you think I will give you a chance to use this strange coin?" Loki looked at Thor with pride. The coin turned between his fingers, like a butterfly dancing among the flowers, playing very skillfully. I have to say that Loki's handwork is really good. As for the mystery of the coin of destiny and the conversation between Kinlawo and Thor, Loki heard and saw it clearly through the fake and shoddy destroyer. In its view, this magical and strange coin can help people achieve their dreams. Just like his brother Thor, when he needed strength, this coin summoned thunder to help his brother regain strength. Even if Loki was beaten to death, he would never have thought that the so-called thunder power was just a punishment mechanism of the coin of destiny, and he really overestimated the pitfall of the coin of destiny. Damn it! Thor slammed the bridge hard, waving Thor's hammer in his hand, and rushed towards Loki. Now he only wants to get the coin of destiny back. But Thor was seriously injured just now, and because of his impatience, his movements began to deform. Thor was now relying on a reckless force, but how could he beat Loki now? In less than 3 or 5 rounds, Loki knocked Thor away again. He didn't even use both hands, and held the gun with one hand. With the other hand, he was always playing with the coin of destiny. Soon, nearly 1/3 of the Frost Giant's planet was destroyed. Thor also staggered to his feet from the ground, and the blood on his face seeped into his eyes. It made his eyes blood red. "My stupid brother, are you ready to accept your death and failure?" Loki said with a fierce light in his eyes, and threw the coin of destiny in his hand fiercely into the air. When Thor saw this scene, his body was unstable and he almost sat on the ground. There was a hint of despair in his eyes. He really didn't want to accept that the magic weapon that could have won the victory had become someone else's wedding dress because of his stupidity, but there was no way to refuse to accept it. The facts were right in front of him. But soon Thor's face showed a bit of surprise, because he saw in the sky, the coin of destiny turned silver, and it exuded that familiar ominous aura. There was nothing wrong with these, but why are there still thunderclouds gathering above Loki's head? Shouldn't it be some special reward? Why is Loki also thunder? It has to be said that the brothers Loki and Thor have very similar ideas in some aspects. Thor's ideas are the same as Loki's. In his opinion, this magical coin will definitely transform into a powerful force according to the needs of the user. Boom! The sound of thunder and lightning sounded. Loki felt numb all over his body. This was a sign that he was about to be struck by lightning. Loki had been fighting with Thor for many years and was no stranger to being struck by lightning, so the reaction was quite sensitive. He looked at Thor for the first time, but found that Thor just looked at him with a weird look on his face and didn't make any moves to attack. Moreover, Thor had experienced several battles and had no strength left. How could he summon the power of thunder? Gudong Chapter 333. Since gaining extraordinary power, even the gentle May Parker can't help but have the urge to take action. Kinlawo patted May Parker on the shoulder, signaling her not to get too excited. Then he turned to look at Coulson and Hill, who looked alert, and said earnestly, "You guys, don't use justice to pressure me. It's useless to me. And if you want to kidnap others morally, you should at least see if the other party has morals." Coincidentally, I am the one without morals. You shield can protect humans if you can, and if you can't, think of a way yourself. At this point, Kinlawo changed his tone and his face became gloomy. Don't bother me again in the future. Don't bother me about anything. I'm not in the same good mood as today. Do you understand? Coulson and Hill's faces changed again and again when they heard this. It's like a chameleon. But what can they do in this situation? Can they still steal things from Kinluo? Don't joke. If there was no last battle, that black braised egg might still have some spirit, and if it doesn't work, he will use his big move, summon a certain cosmic street ant. But now, he really has no confidence. It's not that he hasn't seen that person's battle. It's hard to tell who is stronger between Kinluo and that person. Even the stewed egg thinks that his own trump card must be stronger. But what if his own trump card loses? At that time, he will definitely tear his face apart, and then he really has no way out. Thinking of the powerful extraordinary power around Kinluo, even the black stewed egg can't help but envy. Whether it is a group fight or a single fight, he has no advantage. Hawkeye plus Black Widow versus Iron Man plus Spider-Man. Don't be funny. Doesn't the stewed egg know what the situation is with the people around him? He can't beat him at all. As for other powers, it's even more useless. A frozen old antique is still sleeping and is in a semi-wasted state. As for the Hulk, it's even more nonsense. Who knows who is closer to now? Once a fight starts, if it betrays, it will be a mess. Besides, there is an unknown May Parker beside Kinluo. Although May Park had not made many moves, judging from the few times he had made moves, the opponent's strength was probably not much weaker than Iron Man and Spider-Man. To put it bluntly, there was nothing Lu Dan could do to Kinluo now. He could not beat him, nor could he force him. The people around him were even stronger than each other. What could he do? Lu Dan couldn't help but feel a little regretful now. If he had been on good terms with Kinluo at the beginning, he would have done his best to defeat him. Maybe his Avengers plan would have been completed. Why bother with such an embarrassing situation like now? All the good things belong to others, and he didn't even have a chance to drink soup. Hill wanted to say something unwillingly, but Coulson grabbed his wrist. He had been in contact with Kinluo for a longer time, so he naturally understood that Kinluo was on the verge of getting angry at this time. Once Hill said something more, something unpleasant might happen. Maybe the two of them might just start eating. In that case, we won't bother you anymore. Sorry, Mr. Kinluo, for interrupting your meal. After Coulson dragged Hill behind him, he spoke to Kinluo respectfully. As the saying goes, don't hit a smiling person. But Kinluo has let these guys go too many times. If he doesn't really teach them a lesson this time, it will be endless. Kinluo waved his hand and said with a fake smile, before leaving, I'll give you a gift. After all, we are old friends. Since you're here, I can't let you go empty-handed. Coulson and Hill looked at each other and saw a hint of joy in each other's eyes. If Kinluo is really willing to share a piece of wreckage, that's not impossible. In general, it can be regarded as a gain. If Kinluo hears their thoughts, I'm afraid he will only give them 3 words. You want to eat farts. Chapter 135 Sword Chi enters the body. Brothers kill each other, then we will obey your orders respectfully, Coulson said with a happy face. Hill's face on the side also completely eased. However, Kinluo raised his hand. The armor wreckage they imagined did not appear. Instead, they felt a sense of crisis. The two wanted to dodge, but how could their speed be as fast as the speed of the sword energy? Coulson and Hill's dodging action froze in place. They both covered their hearts at the same time. They both felt that something special had entered their hearts, but they couldn't describe what it was. In short, the feeling was very strange. It didn't hurt or itch, but it was very awkward. Coulson covered his chest and rubbed it constantly, as if he was trying to calm himself down. He stared at Kinluo and asked, Mr. Kinluo, what do you mean by this? Why did you suddenly attack us? I don't think we are your enemies. When Coulson said this, he was obviously gritting his teeth and holding back his anger. If he hadn't been defeated, he would have killed Kinluo long ago, so why would he talk nonsense here? Haha. Kinluo sneered and spread his hands. Who knows? Who can predict what will happen in the future? Besides, you don't have to worry too much. This sword energy is just a gift for you. It will never affect you at ordinary times. But don't come to me to nag otherwise. If I'm in a bad mood one day, your heart may be. Bang! Kinluo stretched out his hand, and his 5 fingers suddenly opened. making a fireworks explosion. Coulson and Hill's faces changed again, but this time, the two could no longer say anything. After taking a deep look at Kinluo, the two turned around and left, but just when they walked more than 10 meters, Kinluo's voice sounded in their ears again. By the way, don't try to use any high-tech means to expel my power. It's useless. You can't find his existence. If you are too presumptuous, this power may explode in advance. You can refer to Obadiah stand for the death situation. Hill and Coulson paused, and looked at each other. They saw shock in each other's eyes, as well as an even uglier look as if they had eaten an Oreo. As for the cause of Obadiah Stan's death, S.H.I.E.L.D. has not yet found out what the circumstances are. Today, the case was finally solved. I didn't expect that the mastermind was Kinluo. Looking at the heavy backs of the two, Kinluo showed a smile. The most important negotiation tool, the good guy, has been restricted. It is estimated that no one from S.H.I.E.L.D. will bother him in the short term. As for the Rue Metal, Kinluo actually already had an idea in his mind. Originally, he planned to use it as a wine fairy gourd, but after thinking about it carefully, I feel that it is not quite suitable. After all, the Dionysus spell needs sword energy or spiritual energy to trigger. Although Rue Metal is a magic metal, it does not blend into Kinluo's otherworld power. As for the hardness, it is just so-so, so it is still not suitable to be used as a wine fairy gourd. Kinluo's ideal metal is still adamantium or vibranium. These two metals are absolutely resistant to tossing and will definitely be more convenient to use. As for Rue Metal, Kinluo plans to use it for armor, of course not for himself, nor for Tony or May Parker Spider. This set of armor, Kinluo is going to give it to his future younger brother, Ghost Rider, Hot Johnny. Chapter 334. On the surface, these destroyer fragments are all made of Rue Metal, but when Kinluo observed closely, he found that it was not what he thought. He was thankful that there was 1/5 of Rue Metal in the remains of the destroyer. The rest were all metals used to make up the numbers. It's just that these metals are engraved with unusual runes. Although Kinluo couldn't understand what these runes meant, but from the fluctuations of the power above, he could basically guess that these runes were to help the destroyer operate. Fuck, Odin, this old Yin coin. He is really thief enough to make a fake to fool people. He really deserves to be the old god king. The older he gets, the more sinister he becomes. Kinluo kept cursing in his heart. Originally, according to Kinluo's temper, it was very likely that he would curse on the spot, but after all, Thor was there, and it was a bit not good to curse someone's father in front of his son. Human, thank you for your help this time. Fate has chosen me. These fragments are all Rue Metal. If you like, they will all belong to you. Kinluo was not moved at all when he heard this, and even rolled his eyes. Thor is really a man who talks about things that are not related to him. However, Thor did not notice Kinluo's strangeness at all. He showed a proud look on his face, raised the Thor's hammer in his hand and continued, "Don't underestimate this metal. It can be used to create artifacts. The Thor's hammer in my hand is forged with this metal." Whoosh. However, before Thor finished speaking, the Thor's hammer flew directly out of his palm and floated in the air 5 meters away from him. Kinluo looked at the scene with a smile. Although he didn't say anything at this moment, it seemed that he had said everything. Thor's face flushed red, and the combat boots on his feet squirmed for a while, as if he was busy with some great project. Ahem. Thor really couldn't stand this embarrassing scene. He coughed dryly. Well, Thor's hammer has not been used to the gravity here since it came to Earth. So please don't mind. This time it's the matter. I thank you again. Now I haven't finished my business in Asgard, so I'll leave for now. Kinluo nodded and said nothing more. Thor walked towards Thor's hammer floating in the air and pulled it into his hand. Then he woke up the 3 unconscious warriors of Asgard, and together with Sif, they stood where the destroyer had just landed. That is the foothold of the Rainbow Bridge. Wait a minute. Kinluo seemed to suddenly remember something at this time, and just called Thor. Bang! Thor's hammer rushed forward a long way like a frightened rabbit. Thor didn't react in time and fell to the ground. That scene was really as embarrassing as it could be. In the end, Kinluo still didn't say anything, and could only greet him twice in an awkward but polite way. Then he turned around and swept away all the Rue metals, and then went back to his hill to continue grilling. The main reason why he called Thor was to try whether he could get a fishing buff from Sif and the three warriors of Asgard. But it turned out that it was not possible. They played too little time and were not considered key plot characters. In fact, Kinluo also knew that if any cat or dog could trigger the buff, then the buff would be too worthless. But Kinluo would be unwilling to give it a try. May Parker was very satisfied with the ending. He excitedly helped Kinluo grill, and took a bite from time to time. Thor and his party also returned to Asgard under the call of the Rainbow Bridge. Prepare to stage the second scene of brothers killing each other. When Kinluo was happily grilling, Coulson and Hill of S.H.I.E.L.D. came over with embarrassment and nervousness on their faces. After experiencing the previous wave of events, Kinluo was in a good mood. Seeing them like this, he smiled and teased, "What's the matter, you two? Is your S.H.I.E.L.D.'s public funds tight recently? No food? It doesn't matter, come and get whatever you want to eat, I'll treat you." Seeing that Kinluo was in a good mood, ×2 Coulson and Hill looked at each other and breathed a sigh of relief. Coulson smiled professionally and said, "Mr. Kinluo, thank you for your hospitality, but forget about the barbecue. The big guy who just fought, his fragments, I wonder if you can give them to our S.H.I.E.L.D. for processing." Before Coulson finished the second half of his tentative words, Kinluo waved his hand to interrupt. "You S.H.I.E.L.D. are really good at playing now. You want to eat ready-made food without doing anything? There is no such good thing in the world." "That's right. When the destroyer was wreaking havoc just now, what were you doing at S.H.I.E.L.D.? Why didn't you stand up?" May Parker echoed with dissatisfaction. She never thought that S.H.I.E.L.D. would be so shameless and come over to ask for the remains of the destroyer. Even a fool knows that the thing is worth a lot of money. How ugly it is to eat. Hearing Kinluo and May Parker's squeeze, Coulson and Hill's faces flushed slightly. They are also people who want to be proud, and such a thing is really not good. But there is no way. Their own Studeg boss has given the order, and they have to complete it. Thor's hammer was taken away by Thor, the god of thunder. If they can't even get the wreckage of the destroyer, then this time, S.H.I.E.L.D. will play in vain. No, it shouldn't be said to be in vain. It should be said that it lost both the lady and the army. After all, the loss of manpower and equipment is quite large. Chapter 134 Moral Kidnapping, Leave Something for You. The atmosphere fell into a strange silence for a while. Kinluo ignored Coulson and the others. The peach leaves are pointed, and the willow leaves cover the sky, humming a little tune, grilling skewers at ease. Seeing this, May Parker would not pay attention to them. Help Kinluo. Soon, hundreds of fragrant skewers were freshly baked. "You know, this is barbecue with Aldagia's special seasoning. It is definitely not comparable to those ordinary coquettish bitches. Not to mention this half-desert of food." Coulson and Hill were drooling on the side, but after all, they are professionally trained agents, and their resistance to food is much stronger than that of ordinary people. Unless you can't help it. Kinluo originally thought that he had squeezed the gang of S.H.I.E.L.D. so bluntly. Those who are sensible should turn around and leave. Even if they are not sensible, they should not be able to say anything. But Kinluo really underestimated the face of S.H.I.E.L.D. and overestimated their ability to know what to do. They didn't seem to take Kinluo and May Parker's squeeze seriously. "Slurp, Mr. Kinluo, please agree to this. You should know that the world is not as peaceful as it seems. You alone cannot protect everyone. Professional things should be done by professionals. If S.H.I.E.L.D. can have the power of the destroyer you mentioned, the safety of mankind will be greatly improved." Coulson took a deep breath and said seriously, "That's right, Mr. Kinluo. Please be sure to put the overall interests of mankind first. According to the words of your dragon country, this thing is icing on the cake for you, and for the current human beings, it is definitely a timely help." Hill echoed from the side, "You are really overdoing it." May Parker was so angry that his face turned red when he heard the words, and he threw the skewer in his hand heavily on the barbecue grill. Bang! With a muffled sound, the skewer fell on the grill and was blocked by an invisible wave force, and bounced straight out. Fortunately, Kinluo reacted in time. At the moment the signature fell, the force of the wave protected the barbecue grill. Otherwise, the barbecue grill would be destroyed. Looking at May Park, he was ready to fight. Kinluo smiled helplessly, as expected. With a sharp weapon in hand, the killing intention arises. Chapter 335. It's just that I poked it with the ancient dagger. Why is he so scared? Now he didn't take out the ancient dagger. Soon Kinluo rushed to Thor. The four looked at each other, and the atmosphere was a little awkward for a while. In the end, Kinluo was the first to speak. Ahem. Kinluo coughed dryly and pointed at the destroyer crawling out below. Thor, whether you can defeat the destroyer depends on your fate. Kinluo took out 2 coins that exuded strange power. It was the long-lost fate coin. Even now Kinluo can use the power of blood to restore his own damage. I still don't like this pitfall fate coin, but when I saw Thor bathing in thunder and lightning today, Kinluo suddenly had a flash of inspiration. Isn't this thing suitable for Thor? Thunder can restore energy, not to mention restoring life. In short, it's not a loss. Similarly, Kinluo also remembered Tony, who was struck by thunder and lightning in the original book. It seems that the steel armor can also absorb the power of thunder and lightning. Tony, who was struck by lightning at that time, was full of energy, and he fired a huge palm cannon to blast Thor away. So Kinluo made a decisive decision to take out 2 coins of destiny and give them to Thor as compensation for the power of Thor. As for the other 3, they were Tony's reward for taking care of Spider-Man. Human, what do you mean? Thor still didn't understand what Kinluo was going to do, but Thor's hammer's reaction to Kinluo had to make Thor more vigilant. Ding. Important plot character detected. Thor Odinson, god of thunder and strength. Get super fishing buff. You will get extra rewards for the next 2 fishing. Hearing the system's prompt sound, Kinluo's eyes lit up like a light bulb. Extra fishing reward? ? Damn. If you get this reward at the beginning, when you fish for the Ghost Swordsman gift pack, you can fish the ancient dagger together. There is no need to fish in a designated world, and there are 2 chances. He is indeed one of the 3 great Avengers. This buff reward is really good. Thor and Thor's hammer felt a little frightened when they saw Kinluo's smile. 1 man and 1 hammer moved back almost at the same time, and the lightning storm was also shifted a little. Kinluo came back to his senses and didn't say any more nonsense. He directly stuffed a coin of destiny into Thor's armor, and the other one was stuffed into Thor's hand. Believe in your own destiny. Bounce this coin, and destiny will tell you the answer, unless you are ready to accept your failure. Kinluo looked like an old charlatan, looking at Thor, pointing at the destroyer who was about to crawl out of the lightning storm. Thor looked at the coin in his hand that exuded strange power. The gold and silver color seemed to light up a faint light at this time. The light pointed directly at his heart. Gritting his teeth, Thor decided to give it a try. Anyway, there was no loss to him. What's more, with the strength of the human in front of him, if he wanted to harm him, he would have done it long ago. Why waste so much time talking to him? Ding. Thor threw the coin in his hand high up. In the air, the coin of destiny emitted a weak light, with gold and silver colors intertwined. But soon the golden light faded, and the silver light occupied the entire coin. The coin of destiny completely turned silver, and it exuded an ominous breath. Sure enough, the coin of destiny is really unreliable. Kinluo saw the familiar silver color, and his mouth twitched, and he rushed out of the thunderstorm decisively, and kicked the destroyer who crawled out again. Loki and Asgard saw this familiar scene. His teeth were almost broken, and he almost spit out a mouthful of blood. He stared at Kinluo. At this moment, in addition to Thor, he had another person in his heart who must be killed. Thor looked at the coin of destiny that had completely turned silver above his head. He felt a little confused. He really couldn't figure out what this thing was used for. Predicting fate? But what does it mean to turn silver? However, before Thor could think about it, the coin of destiny suddenly disappeared in front of his eyes. Boom. Then Thor's familiar voice sounded in the sky. The roar of thunder and lightning, an extremely thick thunder and lightning fell from the sky. It landed accurately on Thor. The power of this thunder and lightning was so great that Thor felt very surprised and unbearable. His hair began to stand up, looking like a Super Saiyan, but the effect was still quite obvious. Thor could clearly feel that the power he had lost was recovering at a very fast speed. In the blink of an eye, he recovered almost half of his power. This was the case when most of the thunder and lightning were absorbed by Thor's hammer, otherwise he would have gained more power. For a while, Thor felt that the world was bright. It was replenished with thunder and lightning power. The thunder and lightning storm started to operate again at this moment, and the speed was even 3 points faster than before. However, in just a dozen seconds, the power had been accumulated. Destroy it! Thor let out a long roar, holding Thor's hammer, carrying the full power of the thunder and lightning storm. It directly bombarded the destroyer. Chapter 133. The battle is over, and the embarrassing farewell is rumbling. The lightning column shot up into the sky. At this moment, the sky was clear and the clouds dispersed. Only the dazzling lightning column remained. The sky was like this. The land was even more so. A small basin appeared in the basin created by Kinluo. Countless lightning and thunder raged in the land, and the gravel and sand were flying all over the sky, which looked extremely spectacular. The destroyer in the lightning column could not resist such power at all. The body kept breaking apart, and almost all of them turned into baby-sized fragments scattered all over the ground. The lightning column did not last long. After the destroyer was completely destroyed, the lightning column also dissipated cleanly. At this time, Thor seemed to be hollowed out, with his hands on his knees. Fine beads of sweat kept flowing down his forehead, and his breathing became extremely uneven. His face was even more morbidly pale. However, when Thor saw the destroyer scattered all over the ground, he still showed a relaxed smile. At this time, Kinluo walked to the destroyer fragments. He squatted down and looked through the fragments. Suddenly, his face became a little strange, even a little gloomy. Chapter 336. Seeing this, Thor knew that he could not continue to fight with the destroyer. The power of the destroyer came from Asgard. Unless the destroyer could be crushed in an instant, it would be difficult for ordinary attacks to have any effect on him. On the other hand, Thor's hammer was in a bad state and it was difficult for him to continue fighting. If the consumption time was too long, he would definitely be the one to fall. Woo! Thor began to turn his hammer, and bursts of wind-breaking sounds were heard, and dazzling lightning burst out all over his body. It was obvious that he was going to use a big move. Thor's hammer also emitted bursts of faint light at this time, echoing with Thor. As the hammer rotated faster and faster, Thor directly raised Thor's hammer. The whole person took off like a helicopter. The airflow driven by Thor's hammer also formed a huge tornado. Soon the surrounding thunderclouds were also pulled by this powerful airflow. They gathered in the tornado. For a time, wind and thunder intertwined. The terrifying tornado quickly took shape. Damn it, Thor, don't even think about it. Loki and Asgard roared. He had also fought with Thor for many years. He knew his attack methods very well. Loki knew the power of Thor's move very well. It was difficult for the destroyer he was controlling to take this attack head-on. Loki poured all his divine power into the Spear of Eternity. The light of the Spear of Eternity was once again raised to a higher level. The metal around the destroyer on Earth cracked into cracks. Dazzling light flashed from the cracks, and the high-temperature beam at the face also changed from orange-red to red at this moment. The power was definitely far greater than the previous high-temperature beam. Thor bit his back teeth and swung Thor's hammer faster. The lightning storm also became more intense. Boom! With a loud bang, the terrifying high-temperature beam sprayed out. From bottom to top, the lightning storm was almost broken into two sections. But just when the high-temperature beam tore the lightning storm in half, the high-temperature beam was consumed by the power of the storm, and it was stuck in place, unable to move forward. Gradually, the power of the high-temperature beam was exhausted. The body of the destroyer was caught in the expanding lightning storm. The violent lightning kept tearing the body of the destroyer, and dazzling sparks popped out from time to time. At the same time, it also left wounds of varying depths on the destroyer. Loki wanted to control the destroyer to escape from the lightning storm, but his power had been consumed just now. The golden light on the Spear of Eternity dimmed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Now he was completely powerless. He could only watch the destroyer being destroyed by the lightning storm. Thor was still accumulating power in midair at this time. He knew very well that with the power he had now, it was not enough to destroy the destroyer. He needed more power. But soon, Thor found something wrong. Although Thor's hammer was still turning, the power accumulated was getting less and less. Even the rotation speed of the entire lightning storm slowed down. Thor looked up and saw that the light of Thor's hammer was flickering, and it looked like it was going to shut down. Instantly, he felt bad. Would Thor's hammer just weaken in the middle of the journey? Thor waved Thor's hammer desperately and shouted, "Mjolnir, hold on, we're about to succeed." As if in response to Thor's words, the light on Thor's hammer lit up again. However, before Thor could be happy for 2 seconds, the light of Thor's hammer almost completely dimmed, and the entire thunderstorm also stagnated at this moment, and there were signs of dissipation. There was no way. The energy in Thor's hammer had long been absorbed by Kinluo. It was not enough to support Thor's big move, being able to condense the power to such an extent. To put it bluntly, Thor's hammer forced himself to urinate blood. Seeing this, Loki, who was already desperate, immediately felt hope in his heart. He manipulated the already riddled destroyer to rush out of the thunderstorm. Seeing this, Thor would never let the destroyer do what he wanted. He squeezed out his last bit of divine power as much as possible, barely making the lightning storm spin again. Unfortunately, the power was still too far behind, and Thor could only watch the destroyer break free from the shackles of the lightning storm bit by bit. Kinluo sighed helplessly, and rushed to the vicinity of the lightning storm in a flash. He kicked back the destroyer who had almost rushed out halfway. Thor's weakness was directly related to him. After all, Thor's hammer also helped him complete his awakening and activated the breath of Thor in advance. He still had to help at the critical moment. "Damn human, what are you going to do?" Loki roared angrily, and his mentality exploded directly. Thor looked at Kinluo with an incredible face. He never thought that at the critical moment, this powerful human would actually help him. Chapter 132 Destiny Coin, Super Fishing Buff. Seeing Kinluo's arrival, Thor was surprised at the same time. He was even more worried. He didn't know whether Kinluo was here to help him. What if he wanted to stab him in the back? That would be bad. He had seen Kinluo's battles, not to mention his current weak state. Even in his prime, he was no match for this man. Because Thor was too focused on Kinluo, he didn't notice that the Thor's hammer, which was constantly shaking in his hand, was slightly offset a little bit. Kinluo rushed into the thunderstorm. The lightning around him had no intention of attacking him, but instead avoided him. It was like a minister seeing the king. Thor was stunned. It was the first time he saw someone who ignored his ultimate move. Even the legendary fire giant was confused when facing his ultimate move. However, what made him even more confused was still behind. As Kinluo kept approaching, Thor found that the Thor's hammer in his hand had a feeling of being out of control. Looking up, he saw that the Thor's hammer had almost shifted to the limit. If he hadn't been holding it, I'm afraid the Thor's hammer would have flown out long ago. At this moment, he felt an emotion called fear in it. Kinluo naturally saw all of this. The corners of his mouth twitched, and his face showed a helpless expression. Chapter 337 Only the queen's heart was in a knot. What she didn't want to see the most was the brothers killing each other. After all, the palms and backs of the hands are all flesh. However, facing Odin's order, as the mother of the gods, she still had no way to disobey. Sif held up the dying Thor, and tears kept falling. At this time, Thor was already breathing out more than breathing in. He wanted to say something, but he didn't even have the strength to open his mouth. Is it over? Maypark put the oyster shell in his hand aside, looking at Sif crying bitterly. His brows almost twisted into a knot. Except for very rare cases, I'm afraid few people would hope that the villain would win the final victory. Maypark is naturally no exception. Slurp, my sister, pay attention to observe the surroundings. Your observation hockey can't be used as a decoration, Kinluo said while sucking the soup in the oyster shell. Maple was stunned when she heard it, then she closed her eyes, and her observation hockey was fully activated. Soon she noticed something unusual. He opened his eyes and looked up at the sky. He saw that the sky was already covered with dark clouds, and fine lightning was constantly shuttling through the clouds, like a series of lightning snakes. At the same time, Maypark also felt that a force was emanating from Thor's body, who was on the verge of death. Loki, who was in a state of ecstasy because his dream had come true, did not notice this. He even controlled the destroyer to turn around and prepare to leave the earth. The old guy Odin is really good at making things happen. He is almost playing the drama of brothers killing each other. With such a father, It's hard for the two brothers Thor and Loki. Kinlawo wiped the grease from the corners of his mouth with a tissue and complained. Odin, who was in a coma, wanted to shed a tear to match the current atmosphere. As a result, he heard Kinlawo's complaints, and for a moment, the whole person froze. The tear was stuck in the wrinkles at the corner of the eye, and it became a problem whether it would fall or not. Click. There was a loud noise in the clouds, followed by a thunderbolt that hit Thor directly. However, Thor's thunderbolt was a little worse than Kinlawo's previous scene. At least in terms of thickness, it was more than one level worse, just like the difference between Hulk and Spider-Man. At the same time, Thor's hammer not far away also burst out with dazzling lightning. Thor's hammer floated up and flew towards Thor at a high speed. The moment he held Thor's hammer, Thor suddenly opened his eyes. He stood directly in the thunderbolt. At this moment, his divine power has been completely restored. Holding Thor's hammer, wearing armor, and bathing in thunderbolt, Thor was so handsome at this time. Only Thor's hammer still had a little flaw. The dull Thor's hammer and the dazzling Thor looked a little mismatched, but it was difficult for others to notice this. Only Thor, the owner of Thor's hammer, felt something was wrong. Could it be that because of being deprived of divine power, Mjolnir is also affected? Thor muttered to himself while looking at the Thor's hammer in his hand. A trace of doubt and puzzlement flashed in his eyes. A man who was grilling in the distance coughed awkwardly, and his hands turning the skewers faster. Hill on the side looked at Thor at this moment, and his tears that had not yet dried fell again, but this time they were tears of excitement. And the people of S.H.I.E.L.D. who were still watching in the distance, their faces were more exciting than each other. Coulson was even more confused. Where is the psychopath? Was it all pretended before? How did he suddenly become the legendary Thor? Hawkeye thought of the scene when he mocked Thor at that time, and felt a little pain in his face for some reason. Damn it. Damn Thor, why can you still get the recognition of Thor's hammer? Why don't you die? How happy Loki was before, how angry he is now. He smashed the Spear of Eternity heavily on the ground of the Asgard, and the special materials of the Asgard shattered in an instant, and the Spear of Eternity was firmly inserted into the ground. At the same time, a more dazzling golden light emerged from the tip of the spear. The entire Asgard seemed to have turned into a golden world. Thor, you die. With Loki's roar, the destroyer immediately took action, and the high-temperature beams on his face quickly condensed, and the energy emitted was much stronger than before. However, facing such a scene, Thor, who had recovered his divine power, was not afraid at all. The Thor's hammer in his hand rotated rapidly, and the power in his body gathered on the Thor's hammer. Suddenly, the blue lightning flashed, looking very gorgeous. At the same time as the high-temperature beam was emitted, Thor's hammer was thrown out at the same time, carrying the terrifying wind and thunder. Rumble. The collision between the two immediately erupted with extremely strong energy, and the land was also cracked. The airwave spread in all directions. Except for the hill where Kinlawo was, there was almost no good place in this land. In fact, there was no good place in itself. After all, he had been ravaged by Kinlawo once before. The power of the high-temperature beam was offset, and Thor's hammer returned to Thor's hand. At this time, Thor was more convinced that something was wrong with his Thor's hammer. The previous attack was at least 1/3 less powerful than when he was in his prime. Chapter 131 Weakness halfway, helping the place. Looking at the destroyer who was gathering energy again, Thor gritted his teeth and rushed up directly. Raising his hand, he fired a thunderous shot. Countless lightning bolts emanated from the hammer, going straight to the destroyer. However, such an attack was still useless in front of the metal. However, the destroyer was blown away by the impact of lightning. Thor shook the Thor's hammer in his hand and soared directly into the sky. Here was a hammer technique that fell from the sky. Duang. Thor smashed heavily on the destroyer with his hammer, making a loud sound of metal clashing. He was knocked directly to the ground. This time Thor's attack finally had some effect. The destroyer's chest was dented, as if it was about to be flattened. His entire body was also suppressed by Thor's hammer and could not move. However, before Thor could react, the destroyer raised his head and fired a high-temperature beam, heading straight for Thor, who was close at hand. Fortunately, after Thor regained his divine power, His reaction ability and sense of danger returned to their peak. At the critical moment, he raised Thor's hammer to block in front of him. Boom! With a loud bang, although Thor's hammer blocked the attack of the high-temperature beam, Thor was still blown away. The residual power of the high-temperature beam left several charred marks on his body. The destroyer stood up, the metal changed for a while, and soon the chest that was smashed back to normal returned to normal. Pa, pa. Thor spat out the mud in his mouth and stood up with Thor's hammer. The embarrassed look formed a sharp contrast with the intact destroyer. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 338. How could his companion get hurt? Thor didn't notice that just when he felt unwilling. In the distance, the originally dim Thor's hammer began to emit a ray of light. Damn it, Loki, I won't let you go. Sif roared, charging at the destroyer like an angry lioness. She did a beautiful somersault. While dodging the destroyer's fist, she grabbed the long sword that was inserted into the destroyer's chest. When she turned around, the long sword brought out a burst of sparks in the destroyer's chest. As Odin's intended daughter-in-law and the goddess of the earth, Sif's longsword is naturally not an ordinary thing, but compared to the destroyer's luxurious metal, it's still a little bit lacking. No matter how Sif attacked, she could not cause any real damage to the destroyer. Wow, she is so powerful. She actually suppressed the destroyer by herself. Maypark saw Sif's heroic figure and couldn't help but exclaimed, "Don't think too much. It only seems that the destroyer has been suppressed on the surface. If you can't break the defense, everything is nonsense. The destroyer can make countless mistakes, but once she makes a mistake, she is likely to face death." Kinlawo took a bite of the tender and juicy skewer, shook his head and said. Maypark naturally had no doubts about Kinlawo's words. If it was really as Kinlawo said, wouldn't the female warrior be in danger? Looking at the ugly destroyer, and then at the heroic Sif, Maypark frowned. Just as Kinlawo said, after Sif attacked the destroyer for more than 10 minutes, her body was unstable and the destroyer caught the flaw. The huge fist rushed straight to Sif's head. At this time, Sif had no power to dodge, and could only watch the fist getting closer and closer to her head. Goddess of the earth, Sif, you should have died a long time ago. Don't you look down on me usually? Ha ha ha. Loki saw that Sif was about to fall into danger. A smug smile and the pleasure of revenge suddenly appeared on his face. All along, none of those who were close to Thor looked down on him, especially the three warriors of Asgard and the goddess of the earth, Sif. The countless sarcasms and contemptuous looks, Loki hated them to the core. Finger gun. Boom. At the critical moment, an invisible force came and hit the destroyer's fist directly. It deflected his fist and made a 180-degree turn. Seeing this, Sif dared not stay for a moment and immediately distanced herself from the destroyer. At the same time, she turned around and found a very beautiful woman looking at her on the hill in the distance. The person who shot was Maypark. Kinlawo looked at Maypark speechlessly and said, "Sister Mai, didn't we agree to just watch the show and not interfere?" Hearing this, Maypark didn't look like he was going to look at Kinlawo at all. He whistled and turned his head away. She looked like, "I didn't do it. It's not me. Don't slander me." What can Kinlawo do in the face of his woman's willfulness? He can only shake his head helplessly. Okay, it's time to grill oysters. However, at this moment, the destroyer cast his eyes on Kinlawo and the others. To be precise, it was Loki who cast his eyes over. Loki, who thought he was a god, was ruined by a mortal. This feeling made him very unhappy and humiliated. "What are you looking at? You dare to show off? I won't even give face to your father Odin, evil god Loki." Feeling Loki's gaze, Kinlawo turned his head slightly and spoke in a cold voice. However, just this one sentence, it made Loki's face change drastically. The other party not only recognized his identity, the voice also penetrated the space through the destroyer and entered his ears. To do this, the mental power required can be said to be quite terrifying. At least Loki thought he couldn't do it. Loki found it hard to believe that a human on Earth, would actually have such power? After a little thought, Loki decided not to make trouble. The main target now is Thor. As long as Thor is killed, his position as the king of gods will be fine. Looking back, Loki manipulated the destroyer to walk towards Thor. At the same time, all the people from S.H.I.E.L.D. were watching from a distant hill. There was no movement at all. The situation is unclear now, and as long as this monster does not touch Thor's hammer, S.H.I.E.L.D. will naturally not choose to interfere. As for Thor and his lives, what does it have to do with them? Sif, who was still in shock, watched the destroyer walk towards Thor again. She gritted her teeth and was about to charge at the destroyer again, but she was stopped by Thor. Thor's eyes were red at this time. He couldn't understand why his brother, who grew up together, must kill him. Even though Loki had pitied Thor a lot when he was a child, things like life-saving games leading to the abyss were all commonplace. But Thor didn't take it seriously. But today he truly felt Loki's strong killing intent, undisguised killing intent. Loki, no matter what I did to make you so angry, these people are innocent. You want my life, take it now. Let these innocent people go, Thor said as he walked to the destroyer, tears slowly falling from the corners of his eyes. Chapter 130 Thor returns. The Meowth destroyer, who is not right, stopped where he is. The orange light that appeared when it fired high-temperature beams also dimmed at this moment. On the throne of Odin in Asgard, Loki stared blankly at the tearful Thor. His face was filled with dullness. Odin, who was in a sleeping state, opened his eyes slightly, feeling a little puzzled. Could it be that Loki was really touched by family affection? No way. This is too unlike Loki. Not only Odin, but also Heimdall in a frozen state, and Odin's wife, Thor and Loki's adoptive mother, all felt a little incredible about Loki's performance at this time. Bang! However, just when everyone was surprised, the destroyer suddenly made a move, and directly blew a big slap, blowing Thor away. Thor flew 30 or 40 meters before he fell heavily to the ground. Thor, don't! Sif screamed and ran towards Thor, tears instantly bursting out of her eyes. Loki of Asgard was full of pride, even a little crazy pride. What a joke! He is the god of conspiracy and trickery. How could he have mercy? What's more, the other party is the obstacle he wanted to kill since he was a child. I don't know what's going on. Odin and Heimdall actually felt relieved at this time. Chapter 339, Here it comes. Kinlawo turned the skewer in his hand over, and a gleam of light flashed in his eyes. As the light of the rainbow bridge flashed, the destroyer appeared near Thor's hammer. May Parker also noticed the huge metal man at this time. His expression became a little weird. After hearing Kinlawo's story, she thought that the destroyer was a transformer-like existence, handsome, mighty and domineering. She never expected that the destroyer would be so ugly. It really made her feel a little disappointed. Tony Stark's new battle suit. Coulson looked at the suddenly appeared destroyer, and his expression became a little weird. From a certain angle, this thing is really like an iron battle suit. It's just a little ugly. But now Thor's hammer is of great importance. Coulson didn't want to make any mistakes, so he immediately gathered people and surrounded the destroyer. No matter who you are, please leave immediately. Coulson was holding a loudspeaker and had just said half of his words. He saw the face of the destroyer change, and then the air around him was distorted. Quickly dodge! Coulson exclaimed, and rolled to the side. The security guards also reacted very quickly. The moment they heard the order, they dodged without any hesitation. Boom! High-temperature beams gushed out from the face of the destroyer, sweeping everything around, and there was a violent explosion. Coulson and the security guards were lucky. Under such an attack, although they were covered in dust and looked very embarrassed, at least there were no casualties. Natasha, Barton, request for support, request for support. Here comes a big guy who is not easy to deal with. Coulson ran away while shouting for support into the headset. Hawkeye and Black Widow, who were resting in the town, heard Coulson's request for help. Their faces changed drastically. After looking at each other, they ran towards the location of Thor's hammer. The S.H.I.E.L.D. security guards retreated and fought back. Countless bullets shot at the destroyer. However, apart from splashing some sparks, it had no effect. Not even a trace was left. Guns are no different from firewood sticks to the destroyer. In Asgard, Loki looked at the security guards who blocked the destroyer. A trace of disdain flashed across his face. "You are just a human ant, but you dare to block the way of God. Prepare to be judged." Loki raised the eternal spear in his hand high after he finished speaking. Suddenly, a burst of energy was transmitted from the tip of the gun. At the same time, the face of the destroyer, who was chasing Coulson and others, changed, and a high-temperature beam that was twice as strong as before condensed. Doing however, at this moment, a round-headed iron hammer flew down from the sky and hit the destroyer's head. The high-temperature beam originally aimed at Coulson and others directly bombarded the destroyer's own feet. Boom! The violent explosion caused smoke and dust to rise all around. In the smoke and dust, a group of 5 people walked towards the destroyer with firm steps. It was Thor, his old lover and 3 good friends. When these 5 people faced the destroyer, their expressions were extremely solemn and serious. Others don't know, but they know too well what the destroyer is. It's no exaggeration to say that they grew up listening to the legend of the destroyer and Odin. Now they are facing such a humanoid weapon, they really have no idea. The appearance of the destroyer must be Loki's doing. His target is Thor. Are we going to watch Thor being killed? The earth goddess Sif looked at the 3 warriors of Asgard with a serious face and said. Hearing this, the 3 warriors of Asgard were stunned, and then their eyes were filled with fighting spirit. They must not watch Thor have any accidents. Fight for Thor, the god of thunder. Hogun, one of the 3 warriors of Asgard, shouted and rushed towards the destroyer first. The other 3 followed closely. The 3 warriors of Asgard have fought together for many years. Not to mention that they are in tune with each other, it's not much different. Under the joint attack, the destroyer was suppressed in a short time. It has no chance to fight back at all. Seeing that the destroyer is so useless, the 3 warriors of Asgard suddenly became more confident. Just when they were about to give the destroyer another set of combos, the destroyer suddenly changed his body shape, and his head, which was originally pressed to the ground, turned 180 degrees. High-temperature beams gathered on his face, on the throne of Odin in Asgard. Loki held the Spear of Eternity with a mocking smile on his face. He looked at the 3 warriors of Asgard as if he was looking at 3 jumping clowns. Chapter 129, Hard Fight with the Destroyer. What are you looking at? Seeing this, the face of the earth goddess Sif suddenly changed. At such a close distance, the destroyer's high-temperature beam penetrated 3 people with absolute ease and pleasure. The 3 warriors of Asgard could not resist it at all. Seeing that the high-temperature beam was about to condense, go to hell, Sif roared, mobilizing all the strength in her body to throw the long sword in her hand. Whoosh! A sharp sound of breaking through the air sounded. The long sword was nailed fiercely on the chest of the destroyer. The high-temperature beam that was about to be ejected was slightly deflected at this critical moment. However, it was these few points that saved the lives of the 3 warriors of Asgard. However, after the high-temperature beam exploded, it still affected the 3 warriors of Asgard. The 3 of them flew backwards in unison. There were countless charred wounds on their bodies. After falling heavily to the ground, the 3 of them could not get up again. Even Hogun and Fandral fell into a coma on the spot. Thor and Sif saw the scene in front of them. Their eyes turned red. They had fought for many years and could be said to be the closest comrades in arms. Now watching the 3 warriors of Asgard fall in front of them, how could Thor and Sif not be angry? Thor stared at the destroyer, and the feeling in his heart was beyond words. He hated his weakness so much now. If he could recover the power of Thor now. Chapter 340, Johnny looked at Kinlo deeply, then rolled his eyes and fainted. Ding. Detected important plot character, Johnny Brace, Ghost Rider, get enhanced buff. When fishing with a fishing rod, there is a certain chance to increase the level of the item obtained. Kinlo's eyes lit up slightly. The buff attribute given by Johnny is not bad. If the fishing rod drawn this time is golden, then he is likely to get a colorful item when fishing. Of course, Kinlo was just thinking about it. With his non-African attribute, it is too difficult to get a colorful item. However, at this moment, Kinlo sensed a hidden breath. Although this breath is well hidden, it still has no effect in front of the heart. After a little feeling, Kinluo found that the other party's breath is extremely similar to the power in the body of the fiery Johnny. They are all carrying the breath of hellfire and crazy angels. But compared to Johnny's new power, that power is already in its twilight years, and the weak hellfire seems to be extinguished at any time. It is not difficult to guess that the hidden person should be the previous generation of Ghost Rider, Carter Slay, the Ghost Rider who betrayed Mephisto. At the same time, he stole Mephisto's important Saint Venganza contract. This contract seals the millions of evil spirits that Kinluo coveted. The Witch Heart Demon came to the world, and it was also for this contract. In the original plot, Johnny fought a big battle with the Witch Heart Demon, but was defeated because of the other party's soul problem. When he woke up, he was in Old Carter's house. Obviously when Johnny was fighting, Old Carter was watching nearby, otherwise, how could there be such a coincidence? Now that Old Carter is nearby, Kinluo saved Johnny from sending him to a safe place. Kinluo glanced at the woods where Old Carter was hiding again. He jumped and flew directly into the sky. At present, the millions of evil spirits are not in a hurry. Anyway, Old Carter will not hand over the Saint Venganza contract for a while. The most important thing now is Thor's side. Watching Kinluo leave. About half an hour later, Old Carter walked out of the woods. At this moment, he looked at the unconscious Johnny. His expression was indescribably complicated. In more than 100 years, this was the first time that Old Carter had seen the Ghost Rider being tortured like this. Even though Johnny had not yet fully awakened his own power. Alas, I hope he is a good person. Otherwise, there will be trouble in the world again, Old Carter muttered, his eyes full of fatigue. For the Saint Venganza contract, he had lived in seclusion for 100 years, and now he didn't have much time. In this limited time, he must let Johnny grow up and get rid of Mephisto's control. Flying towards the western town at high speed, Kinluo thought about the feeling that the Eye of Judgment brought him. To be honest, Kinluo felt quite different from others about the Eye of Judgment. In the original plot, the fire of judgment of the Eye of Judgment could burn the sins in a person's soul, make him die in extreme pain. Although the power of the Eye of Judgment was impacted by the heart eye, it did not dissolve Kinluo too much, but it was also slightly touched. How to describe that momentary touch? It was not painful. It was a feeling similar to that of sweat steaming. Kinluo's whole soul was agitated. Now thinking back carefully, the impact of the Eye of Judgment on him was quite comfortable. At the same time, Kinluo was surprised to find that the power of the soul in the small piece of soul touched by the fire of judgment rose a little. The increase was not much, just that little bit. But even so, it was enough to make people amazed. Kinluo's mental power was quite strong now. If he wanted to improve, there was basically no way except to break through the power of Devil May Cry and Azure. At this time, Kinluo had a bold idea in his mind. The fire of judgment was the fire of the soul, which could burn the sins in the human body. That is to say, the fire of judgment was likely to have the effect of tempering the soul. Kinluo was excited all of a sudden. If the fire of judgment could really temper the soul, then the power of Kinluo's soul would be greatly improved. For Kinluo, the power of the soul was also very important. The Devil May Cry and Azure series mainly cultivated the soul and mental power. The stronger Kinluo's soul was, the more powerful the power of the two systems could be. For a moment, Kinluo wanted to go back to find Johnny and Old Carter, but now Johnny is unconscious, and the power in Old Carter's body has almost dissipated. It's really a bit difficult to ask them to use the Eye of Judgment. Resisting the excitement in his heart, Kinluo's speed increased again. He turned into a stream of light and disappeared into the sky. More than 10 minutes later, Kinluo returned to the hotel. Due to Kinluo's previous battle, except for SHIELD, Thor and his friends, there are basically no people in this town now. When May Parker saw Kinluo's return, a smile appeared on his worried face. "Kin, it's great that you're back. I feel that the atmosphere here is a little wrong. It seems that something is going to happen." May Parker looked at Kinluo and said with a serious face. Kinluo glanced at the sky covered with dark clouds, smiled and nodded, and said, "Sister Mai, you guessed right. The troublemaker is coming." Chapter 128 The Destroyer arrives. Thor and his friends. The sky is bright, The sky is clear. It was hard to imagine that just half an hour ago, the sky was still covered with dark clouds. Kinlawo and May Parker set up a barbecue grill on the highest hill nearby. Not far away, the security personnel and some scientific researchers of S.H.I.E.L.D. were still studying Thor's hammer in full swing. They had no idea that danger was about to come. While sprinkling secret seasoning on the skewers of meat, Kinlawo shook his head and said, "Didn't they sense any energy anomalies? This shield is really getting worse and worse. When the destroyer comes, with such limited manpower." While Maypark, who was preparing the side dishes, heard this and asked curiously, "Kin, what kind of existence is the destroyer you are talking about? A god or a supervillain?" "Well, the destroyer is actually a humanoid weapon created by the god King Odin. The destroyer is made of Asgard's metal and is almost indestructible. Its face can emit continuous high-temperature beams that can melt almost all substances. It can also be deformed. In short, it's a very powerful existence." Hearing Kinlawo's words, Maypark nodded thoughtfully. After thinking for a while, he asked again, "Kin, can you defeat the destroyer?" "Of course, I can easily defeat it. Although the destroyer is powerful, it also depends on the power of the user. If it was controlled by the old man Odin, I might still be a little bit afraid, but now the one who controls the destroyer is Odin's youngest son, Loki, the god of conspiracy and trickery. With his little power, he can't bring the power of the destroyer to its fullest." Rumble. Kinlawo's voice just fell. There was a loud noise in the sky, and then the seven-color streamer of the Rainbow Bridge appeared. Chapter 341. Of course, this is the skill effect of the explosive flame wave sword itself, and it has nothing to do with the Ghost Rider who was blown apart. The two residual flames continued to interweave and burn on the ground. Kinlawo did not look at the Ghost Rider who was blown into pieces. Instead, he squatted on the ground and studied the flames. As the wave fire devoured and extinguished the hellfire, Kinlawo can be sure that the wave fire is still stronger. And this is when the power of thunder and lightning is not obvious. When the skill of Thunder God's breath is fully activated, the hellfire is a joke in front of the wave fire. Perhaps when the Ghost Rider awakens the second stage of the living flame, it will be able to compete with the current wave fire. Click click. At this time, a creepy crisp sound sounded. The bone residue on the ground began to gather and soon formed the head of the Ghost Rider. Neck, chest. Just when the Ghost Rider was about to condense half of his body, Kinlawo shook the ancient short sword in his hand lightly. Suddenly a white ball like cotton candy appeared. The big white ball looks ordinary, but if you observe it closely, you will find that the white ball is vibrating at a very high frequency and emitting quite impressive power. Ghost Seal Bead. The Ghost Seal Bead approached the Ghost Rider. Suddenly, dense flames appeared. The Ghost Rider's body, which had just condensed, was destroyed at a speed visible to the naked eye under the attack of the Ghost Seal Bead, turning into tiny flames. Bang! When the Ghost Rider's body was completely destroyed, the Ghost Seal Bead exploded, and the wave force set off waves of air. This time, those bones were not broken bones, but fine ashes, which did not need to be sieved. In hell, Mephisto, who was watching the show, looked extremely ugly. Originally, he thought that even if the Ghost Rider had not fully awakened his power, he could disgust Kinlawo with his immortal attribute. But who would have thought that the other party would play with it directly, and he was having a lot of fun. "Damn you, spirit of vengeance. Why do you resist my power? If you could have merged with Johnny earlier, how could you have been beaten so badly?" Mephisto gritted his teeth and roared. The whole hell was shaking. The seven devils of hell who had not yet recovered. Hearing this roar, they all shrank their heads and suppressed their power to the lowest. They were afraid of being discovered by Mephisto. At this time, the big guys who were paying attention to this side had bright smiles on their faces. Nothing made them happier than watching Mephisto get humiliated. There was no one in the woods outside the city. Kinlawo looked at the ashes that kept gathering on the ground, thinking in his heart, "How should I kill the Ghost Rider next time?" The power of Devil May Cry cannot be used for the time being. If the spirit of vengeance is not careful, it will be a bit troublesome if it is pulled into the hands of those greedy ghosts and gods. Except for the evil god Brashu, Kinlawo's restrictions on the other 6 ghosts and gods are not that strong. At most, they can be suppressed. At this time, the burning skull of the Ghost Rider condensed. Kinluo grabbed it in his hand, and just when he wanted to use the soul-devouring hand to try to absorb some of the power from this guy, Eye of Judgment, the Ghost Rider's eye sockets condensed into a vortex of flames, emitting a strange power. It was as if he wanted to absorb people's souls. A tyrannical and overbearing mental force was transmitted into Kinluo's body through eye contact. Kinluo was shocked at this time. I almost forgot that the Ghost Rider had such a killer move. The Eye of Judgment is different from ordinary power. He is more like a kind of rule power, ignoring the power of the individual. As long as the other party has a soul, he can be disturbed by the Eye of Judgment and burn the sins in the soul. If the sinner is serious, he will be burned to death by the fire of judgment on the spot. Otherwise, there is no problem. As the power of the Eye of Judgment invaded Kinluo's soul, just when it wanted to go further, suddenly, the heart eye like a painting suddenly came alive. The eyeballs of the heart eye condensed slightly and fell on the power of the Eye of Judgment. In an instant, a powerful mental energy burst out, directly blast away the power of the Eye of Judgment and fight back. The power of the Eye of Judgment is indeed powerful and special, but compared with the Eye of Heart, it is still a level lower. Don't forget the Eye of Heart. It is the eye of the Emperor of Heaven, the eye of God. Even if Kinluo has not completely awakened the power of the Emperor of Heaven, it is not something that a crazy angel can contend with. The body of the Ghost Rider was blasted away again, and the soul fire was also devoured by the powerful spiritual power. In the blazing flames, the body of Hot Johnny gradually appeared. The Ghost Rider was beaten back to his original form by Kinluo's Eye of Heart. Chapter 127. The previous generation of Ghost Rider, tempering the soul. Kinluo looked at the Ghost Rider lying on the ground. He nodded secretly in his heart. If it weren't for the power of the Eye of Heart being too strong, maybe he would also capsize in the ditch. The power of the Eye of Judgment is quite strong. Among the superheroes that appear now, in addition to the big guys like Ancient One Odin, it is estimated that the only ones who can fight with the Ghost Rider are the Hulk and Spider-Man. Tony is almost there. If they fight, the one who will have the last laugh must be Ghost Rider. With the skill of Eye of Judgment, perhaps Spider-Man can still withstand it. It is too difficult for the Hulk to resist. He has many lives on his hands. Even if some of them are hurt unintentionally, the sin still exists. And it is true that the Hulk is invincible in the flesh, but his soul is still too fragile. Otherwise, his soul would not be slapped out of his body by Guyi. Johnny, who was beaten back to his original form, suddenly opened his eyes and made a strange sound in his throat, as if it was a broken hair dryer. Water. Please, give me water. Johnny looked at Kinluo not far away, his eyes full of desire for the source of life. Kinluo smiled and shook his head, took out a large bucket of mineral water, and gave Johnny a cool down. Johnny's eyes were wide open, and his Adam's apple was surging desperately. Even if he was choked, he did not stop drinking water at all. Wait until the mineral water is poured out. Chapter 342. Are you kidding? Even Thor's hammer can't withstand the sharpness of the ancient dagger. Just one hell chain and more hammers. The Ghost Rider's face changed slightly. He shook the chain in his hand and wanted to connect the broken half of the chain, but he was blocked by a sword energy, and the hell chain that had just broken into two sections was shortened again. The flames on the Ghost Rider's body flashed, and his eyes were full of fear when he looked at Kinluo. He underestimated the human in front of him. Kinluo didn't look at the Ghost Rider at this time, but just looked at the surrounding buildings, and his face became a little ugly. Just after a fight, the balcony was almost completely destroyed. The guardrail turned into a pool of molten iron and flowed to the ground. Kinluo felt so painful in his heart. His warm little home was ruined like this. No, he had to change the place to fight. Otherwise his home would be completely ruined. Damn it, follow me, Kinluo shouted in a low voice, and his figure flashed and rushed directly in front of the Ghost Rider. He grabbed his skull in his hand. It looked like holding a burning basketball. Damn it, such a situation is really not very harmful, but extremely insulting. The Ghost Rider let out a low roar, and the surrounding hellfires soared wildly. It seemed that he wanted to burn Kinluo into charcoal. However, whether it was the power of fluctuations or the power of blood and chi. In short, any of the 4 ghost swords could easily keep the blazing hellfire out. So no matter how the Ghost Rider's hellfire burned, it could not break through Kinluo's power. With a thought, Kinluo soared into the sky, like a sharp sword, rushing towards the distant suburbs. In fact, Kinluo could fly without any external force, but he thought it was handsome and convenient to step on the ancient dagger, so he kept flying with the sword. The Ghost Rider was not honest in the air: fists, knees, elbows, head, and even teeth. In short, all the attacks he could perform were performed by Kinluo. It's a pity that it was like scraping, and it didn't cause any harm to Kinluo. Even the defense of Jia of the Shadow could not be broken. However, even though he was harassed by this guy, Kinluo was a little annoyed. After making sure that there was no one below, Kinluo kicked the Ghost Rider on the pelvis, kicked him out. Bang! The Ghost Rider hit the ground heavily, directly smashing a big hole, and the hellfire on his body also dimmed at this moment. It seemed that he was going to die. Kinluo curled his lips in disdain. If the Ghost Rider died so easily, he would not have given Mephisto such a headache. Don't pretend. What should I call you? Ghost Rider? Spirit of Vengeance? Crazy Angel or Fiery Johnny? Kinluo's voice just fell. Bang! The hellfire began to burn fiercely, and the Ghost Rider jumped out of the deep pit, staring at Kinluo. The flames in his eyes jumped wildly. This shows how much fluctuation he had in his heart at this time. Who are you, human, and what do you know? The flames burned fiercely, and there was a hint of human emotion in the Ghost Rider's words. As for me, I am a human being who has an everlasting hatred with Mephisto. How about it? Do you want to join forces to deal with Mephisto? You don't have to do anything, just help me open the passage between the human world and hell. Kinluo showed a gentle smile on his face, looking at the flaming body of the Ghost Rider. A trace of greed flashed in the depths of his eyes. The strongest worker can also help him open the passage between the human world and hell. That hell is heaven. It is really hard for Kinluo not to be tempted by such an existence. As for what this guy did just now, it doesn't matter. Tony wanted to do it when he first saw him. It is completely understandable. After all, the accusation of the Ghost Rider is absolute justice. Facing Kinluo's ghost hand containing the breath of ghosts and gods, it would be strange if he didn't take action. Anyway, he will be taken back to his command in the future, and there will be plenty of time to retaliate against him. Now let's talk about it first. Human, your arm is extremely evil. I will not cooperate with evil people. You should give up this idea. Ghost Rider did not hesitate too much and decisively rejected Kinluo. His words were full of madness. It was obvious that the crazy angel did not intend to cooperate with Kinluo. Then the hell flame in his hand flashed, attached to the hell chain, and pulled it suddenly. Suddenly, the chain that was less than 2 meters long suddenly expanded. Kinluo nodded secretly when he saw this. He almost forgot that this hell chain could be extended infinitely as long as there was hellfire. But so what? They were just chickens and dogs in front of the ancient dagger. Chapter 126 Eye of Judgment. Back to the original form. Looking at the crazy look of the Ghost Rider, Kinluo frowned slightly. It seems that now Hot Johnny has been completely controlled by the crazy angel, so it is probably impossible to have a good talk with him about this matter. Kinluo looked at the Ghost Rider with a flash of contempt in his eyes. Hot Johnny, nothing. As soon as he came up, he was completely suppressed by the crazy angel. Don't you know that this is your own body? Now if you want to calm down this burning skeleton, there is probably only one way. Beat it, and beat this guy back to human form and he will be honest. Anyway, this thing is not afraid of death. Kinluo can hammer it however he wants. With a thought, 4 buffs were added to his body at the same time. Breaking Extreme Weapon Blade, Ghost Step, Murderous Intention Wave, Rampage. The violent power spread out, and the raging flames on the Ghost Rider were suppressed by this power. It almost turned into a small flame. Roar! The Ghost Rider roared, and the flames around him rose wildly, but they could not rise too much, and were completely suppressed. Evil arm, evil man, die! The Ghost Rider roared as if he was brave, and the chain in his hand spun wildly. A huge vortex of flames was formed immediately, Kinluo felt the pitiful power of hell and shook his head with disdain. The Ghost Rider who has not developed all his strength is really weak. Explosive flamed middle-wave sword. Kinluo's wave power surged, and suddenly a huge wave of fire appeared. There was a faint flash of lightning on the wave of fire. Explosive flame wave sword can be said to be one of the most powerful skills in the Azuris series. It has a strong explosive power. Seeing that the other party was having so much fun playing with fire, Kinluo also became interested. He wanted to see which one was more powerful, the wave fire containing the wave power or the hellfire of the Ghost Rider. After the wave of fire hit the vortex of fire, it directly overwhelmed it, and then the second stage of explosive flamed middle-wave sword came. Boom! A huge fireball soared into the sky, forming a fireball similar to a skull. Chapter 343. It turns out that this Wu Zhenmo is not soulless. Instead, his body and soul are integrated into one. His body is his soul. Kinluo was still wondering. Even a demon cannot be soulless. Now the case is solved. Boom! Suddenly, Kinluo felt an extremely hot breath approaching him quickly. This momentum is a bit similar to the hellfire cast by Mephisto, but it is not as evil as him. Instead, it feels a bit decent. Ghost Rider? Damn! Why is he here? Kinluo muttered, and his face suddenly became ugly. It's all a trap. Mephisto is so shady. First, he used the demonic breath to lure Kinluo, and then used Kinluo to kill his son Wu Zhenmo, who was full of rebelliousness. Finally, he lured the Ghost Rider and it was done. Mephisto never thought that the Ghost Rider could kill Kinluo. He knew in his heart that even the old generation of Ghost Rider might not be Kinluo's opponent. However, if the Ghost Rider exerts his full strength, his strength is not much weaker than Mephisto's incarnation. The key is that the Ghost Rider has a very disgusting attribute: immortality. The Ghost Rider will not die. He will be resurrected infinitely, so no one who is targeted by him will have a good life. Think about it, a monster with strong strength but immortal body. Who wouldn't feel numb after hearing this? Even Mephisto himself doesn't want to be targeted by a Ghost Rider. In hell. Ha ha ha. Kinluo, let's see how crazy you are. You guys just kill each other, and when you are exhausted, that's the day you die. Mephisto looked at Kinluo in the mirror with an ugly face, his face full of smug smiles. He is now looking forward to the scene where Kinluo is entangled by the Ghost Rider until he is exhausted, and then he falls from the sky and plunders his soul. Commodage. Guyi looked at the mirror in front of him, and a trace of displeasure flashed across his face. Mephisto trampled her face directly into the mud. He even kicked him hard. Not only did he break the agreement and summon his son into the world, but he also activated the Ghost Rider. Guyi was thinking whether he should meet Kinluo in advance. If possible, send the Ghost Rider back to hell directly, save him from making trouble in the world. Guyi has survived for so many years, but he knows the disgusting thing about the Ghost Rider. However, just when she wanted to make a move, a black light suddenly flashed from the mark between her eyebrows. Guyi's face changed slightly. What happened to the dark dimension? Why did that bastard Doraemon start to toss again? Gritting his teeth, Guyi decided to deal with the dark dimension first. Anyway, the Ghost Rider couldn't do anything to the human strongman for a while. With sparks flashing in his hands, Guyi stepped directly into the dark world. Ascrit. In Odin's bedroom. Odin didn't have time to deal with Mephisto's actions at this time. Now is the critical period of brotherly killing. Don't dare to make any mistakes. After cursing the old yin coin, he set his sights on Loki holding the eternal spear. Kinluo looked at the fire line from far to near, and the temperature around him began to rise. A glimmer of light flashed in his eyes. He was now hesitating whether to deal with this hot Johnny, the Ghost Rider. If Mephisto and the others wanted to use the attribute of immortality to restrict Kinluo, that was really a wrong calculation. Even if the Ghost Rider was immortal, he had a way to deal with this guy. Don't forget that Kinluo has a space to suppress the evil god Brashu. At that time, defeat the Ghost Rider and then take his soul into the Ghost Hand. Use the evil god Brashu to suppress him, and ensure that this crazy angel will never be reborn. No matter how powerful the crazy angel is, can he be more powerful than the seventh ghost god? However, Kinluo still admired this crazy angel. If he could take him in as a younger brother, he could solve a lot of troubles. And if Mephisto knew that his Ghost Rider was subdued by Kinluo, I guess he would vomit 3 liters of blood on the spot. The hot wind whistled. Boom! With a loud bang, the Ghost Rider rode his Hellfire motorcycle down from the sky and blasted a big hole directly in front of Kinluo. Chapter 125, The Crazy Angel Flying with Head. Crack, crack, crack. The heat wave spread out. It formed a considerable impact force. The glass of the surrounding apartments was completely shattered. Kinluo's house naturally did not escape. Even the iron railings on the balcony were invaded by this terrifying heat. It was so soft that it was deformed, like plasticine. Kinluo's face was a little ugly. I forgot the destructive power of the Ghost Rider, but this burning skeleton is really handsome. The Ghost Rider jumped off the motorcycle. He looked around and the flames in his empty eye sockets jumped slightly. He was a little puzzled. He clearly felt the breath of the devil, but now there is only breath. No devil exists. Hey, Ghost Rider, don't worry. Those bastards from hell have been wiped out. Kinluo looked at the bewildered Ghost Rider and said with a smile. Hearing Kinluo's words, the Ghost Rider turned around, glanced at Kinluo and was about to leave. However, at this moment, the Ghost Rider's eyes fell on Kinluo's ghost hand. To be precise, it was the 7 ghost marks. The Ghost Rider's perception of evil energy is quite keen. In addition, the 7 ghosts just ate some snacks, so the power is revealed, and the Ghost Rider naturally noticed Kinluo's arm. Human, your arm contains extremely evil power. Cut it off and I will let you leave. The Ghost Rider stared at Kinluo, and the flames in his eyes jumped wildly. How much did you drink? Do you still want me to cut off your arm? Kinluo heard the words and gave the Ghost Rider a big eye roll. If you don't cut it off, then die. The Ghost Rider roared, and the chain wrapped around the back of Hell and his hand swept towards Kinluo like a long snake. Bang! Kinluo didn't even look at it. He just swung his sword and chopped it. In an instant, the indestructible Hell chain was cut into 2 sections by Kinluo's ancient dagger. Chapter 344. At the same moment, Kinluo felt the unsatisfied and dissatisfied emotions from the ghost hand. Obviously, the ghosts and gods are not interested in junk food like the earth demon. They want more advanced souls. Kinluo rolled his eyes. When he fed them souls before, they didn't react. Now they are picky. With a thought, the runes of the ghost hand lit up directly, suppressing the power of the 7 ghosts and gods. He is not a parent who spoils his children. Faced with Kinluo's toughness, the 7 ghosts and gods were unwilling, but there was nothing they could do. They could only let it go. After destroying the earth demon, Kinluo flashed and came directly to the sewer not far away. The water demon was lying on the ground wailing in pain. On his body was a long sword flashing with a milky white halo. The long sword nailed him to the ground like a nail. His body was sometimes in human form, and sometimes turned into liquid. But no matter how he changed, he could not escape the long sword nailed to him. In order to prevent these demons from escaping, Kinluo had already set up sword formations around him. These sword formations were all recorded in the Shushan secret arts. Shushan is definitely an expert in exorcising demons. They are definitely more professional than Constantine, the exorcist who cheated his father. Although the 2 systems are different, there is also a distinction between good and evil. These demons can't be all righteous. As long as the evil dares to approach, the sword formation will be activated immediately. That's why Kinluo was so unhurried just now. He said that he would not let these demons die too comfortably, and he would not break his promise. Seeing Kinluo approaching, a trace of ruthlessness flashed in the green eyes of the water demon. 5 fingers turned directly into 5 water spears and stabbed directly at Kinluo. The next second, the water spear was directly cut off by Kinluo's protective sword energy. The water demon covered his broken hand and let out a shrill scream. Kinluo used the same trick again, stretched out his hand, and pressed his hand on the top of the water demon's head. A familiar scene appeared. The water demon's eyes were full of fear. It didn't take long for it to turn into a pool of sewage along with the earth demon. It slowly flowed into the sewer. I don't know if it was Kinluo's tough performance just now, or is it that the soul of the water demon tastes better than that of the earth demon. The ghosts and gods responded well this time, although they were still not satisfied. They didn't feel like they had eaten a lot like the earth demon. The wind demon was also dealt with by Kinlawo in the same way. At this time, Kinlawo could sense that his ghost power had increased a little, although it was only a little. But this is just the beginning. Just 3 demons made him feel the increase of ghost power. There are countless demons in hell, not to mention 3, even 300, 3,000, 30,000, 3,000,000. I'm afraid it's no problem. If all those souls are absorbed, Kinlawo is probably about to summon Jiger. While thinking about how to devour the hell demon, Kinlawo came to the witch heart demon. At this time, the witch heart demon was much more miserable than his 3 lackeys. 5 long swords were inserted all over his body, nailing him to the ground. It also proved from another aspect that the strength of Wu Zhenmo was far higher than that of Tu Shui Feng Sanmo. It was probably because he was too seriously injured. Wu Zhenmo had almost recovered his true form of a demon at this time, with red eyes, black face and fangs, and looked extremely shivering. Kinlawo curled his lips. He saw that the movies he had seen before really beautified these existences many times. Originally, Wu Zhenmo looked quite handsome and fierce after absorbing those sinful souls and revealing his true form. Now seeing it with his own eyes, it was really indescribable. Suddenly, Kinlawo's mind flashed with inspiration. Devouring souls? Millions of sinful souls. The contract in the hands of the old evil Ghost Rider? Nima. Isn't this a good place to feed the ghosts and gods? If all those souls are absorbed, even if the priest Jiger cannot be summoned, he can also master more powerful Devil May Cry skills. For example, Tombstone 3 Absolute Formation, Ghost/Purgatory, the enhanced version of the 4th Ghost God, Saya Vice Crystal. Thinking of this, Kinlawo's heartbeat began to accelerate. At the same time, he couldn't help but curse himself for being stupid. Such a good place, he should have thought of it earlier. This time it was really an unexpected surprise. Kinlawo looked at Wu Zhenmo with a softer look. It's true that like father, like son, Mephisto's incarnation has brought him great benefits. Now his son Wu Zhenmo has given him another great gift. If they hadn't appeared, who knows when Kinlawo would have thought of this good place. After all, he has seen too many movies, and Kinlawo's focus is still on the Avengers. He really didn't think too much about these extra Marvel movies. Even before he met Mephisto, he didn't think that there was a Ghost Rider in this world. Chapter 124 Ghost Rider. Old Yincoin Mephisto. Wu Zhenmo struggled hard. He has no soul, only this body condensed by pure hell energy. God knows how this guy got into this. Exorcist, who are you? Why do you have such a strong power? Are you Constantine's teacher? Wu Zhenmo said. His face became extremely ugly, and his eyes were filled with strong fear. You know, he was about to die just now, and the fear was not that strong. This made Kinlawo curious. Why did Constantine's teacher make the devil so scared? Could he be a big shot? After thinking for a while, Kinlawo shook his head. Constantine, this pit, learned too many things. Basically, there is no way he doesn't know an exorcism. In the original plot, Constantine mastered many magical spells, such as spells, curses, witchcraft, invisibility and illusions. He can use induction to find others, and he has used spells from ancient Judaism to drive golems, and he has also used traditional European black magic to summon demons. He is good at using magic circles and talismans to hide his tracks, and can even use talismans to hide himself in front of the first fallen. He can manipulate people's minds to make money, and he also knows how to use quantum magic to find information on the internet. He can travel through hell and time travel. In the later period, he used the demon blood in his body to create an evil version of himself. Kinlawo shook his head. He didn't know where Constantine was now, and it had nothing to do with Kinlawo. Facing such a big pit, it is better to stay away. Why do you come to the human world for no reason? You shouldn't be so presumptuous in my territory. Go ahead of your father, he will be here soon, Kinlawo said as the power of the soul-devouring hand was activated. I'm not willing. The witch heart demon roared in despair, and then the whole person was absorbed into the ghost hand by Kinlawo. It turned into a wisp of black smoke and dissipated in this world. In an instant, all the ghost and god marks on Kinlawo's ghost hand lit up, and a black line visible to the naked eye was madly snatched and swallowed by these 7 ghost and god marks. Kinluo was slightly stunned. Doesn't Wu Zhenmo have a soul? Why are the 7 ghosts fighting so happily? Closing his eyes, Kinluo felt it for a while and understood what was going on. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 345. Now all hope was shattered. It turned out that these 4 rotten sweet potatoes and rotten bird eggs came. Kinluo really couldn't get excited. 4 figures slowly walked out of the black fog. The leader was a young man in a black tuxedo, and behind him were 3 people of different shapes. A bald man with a dusty face, a middle-aged man covered in water, and a young man with disheveled hair and a mouthful of sharp teeth. These 3 people are the Earth Demon, the Water Demon, and the Wind Demon. The young man in the lead is one of Mephisto's descendants, the Witch Heart Demon, a villain who died because of talking too much, and also a guy who was arrogant and courting death. TSK Witch Heart Demon, and your 3 lackeys, who gave you the courage to come to my territory and act wild. Kinluo curled his lips and looked at the 4 demons with cold eyes. Ha ha ha, human? Exorcist? What a big tone. I didn't expect that we could taste the exorcist's feast just after we came to the human world. Those guys in the underground must be envious. The bald man with a dusty face, that is, the Earth Demon, looked at Kinluo with greed and desire in his eyes. For demons, humans are undoubtedly one of their favorite foods, whether it is soul or body. At this time, the Wind Demon sniffed his nose, and a trace of surprise and solemnity appeared on his face. Hey, Earth Demon, don't be careless. There is a smell of John Constantine around here, although it is very faint, but it does exist. This human may have a close relationship with him, and it is very likely that he is one of his helpers. Hearing the words of the Wind Demon, the eyes of the other 3 demons were slightly condensed. John Constantine is also notorious in hell. Who among the exorcists dares to give Mephisto the middle finger? The point is that after giving the middle finger, Mephisto can't do anything to him, and can only forcibly prolong his life and wait for him to go to hell. Constantine is definitely the first one. This alone is enough for him to brag about for the rest of his life. Kinluo's facial expression was a little weird at this time. He didn't expect that Thingmo's nose was quite sharp. He didn't expect that one day he would be able to borrow the name of that guy Constantine. It's really unpredictable. Wu Zhenmo looked at Kinluo, and he didn't understand why he always had a palpitation in his heart. Compared with the other 3 demons, his perception was much more acute. Even if Constantine himself was here, he wouldn't feel palpitations. Wu Zhenmo always felt that something was wrong with coming to the human world this time. He didn't originally plan to come to the human world in this way. The location where he appeared was also different from what he expected. There was a faint smell of conspiracy. TSK, just an exorcist. Haven't you tasted the taste of an exorcist? Even if it's Constantine, what's wrong? The Earth Demon thought of his own lineup and curled his lips in disdain. He believed that even if the legendary Constantine was present, he would die at the hands of the 4 demons. Lord Wu Zhenmo, how about letting me take action? I haven't tasted the taste of humans for a long time. The Earth Demon looked at Wu Zhenmo behind him, his face full of impatience. Wu Zhenmo couldn't help but frown when he heard it. His target is not a small exorcist. He doesn't want to waste energy on such useless things. What's more, this exorcist doesn't give him a particularly good feeling. But on second thought, Wu Zhenmo showed a smile on his face. His smile was very evil, very similar to the smile of his father Mephisto. Kinluo saw this smile and wanted to step on it, but he still suppressed the impulse in his heart. After all, the appetizers were just served on the table, and it would be a bit boring to eat them in one bite, and he didn't want these 4 demons to die so easily. Kinluo looked at the 4 demons calmly and hummed a little song, The Tip of the Peach Leaf, because Kinluo hummed in Longuo, and it was the kind with a little dialect, so the 4 demons didn't understand what he meant, and thought he was chanting a spell and getting ready to take action. The Earth Demon looked at the Witch Heart Demon more eagerly. His hands and feet kept moving around, looking anxious. "Go. Let that exorcist know what the real hell is." The Witch Heart Demon waved his hand, and the smile on his face became more evil. He is now completely using the Earth Demon to test the waters. If Kinluo is strong, he will not hesitate at all and leave directly. In terms of escaping, the Witch Heart Demon has absolute confidence. Even his father, it is not easy to catch him. If Kinluo is not strong, then he can have some appetizers. Anyway, he will not suffer any loss. "Leave it to me, ha ha ha." The Earth Demon laughed, and a lot of mud began to emerge from his body. The whole person turned into a ball of mud and rushed towards Kinluo. It was a bit like Mephisto when he turned into a mud monster. It's just that the strength of the two is really too different, and it is not an exaggeration to say that there is a world of difference. "Exorcist, die!" The Earth Demon rushed to Kinluo, and a strange voice came out from the mud. Kinluo didn't even raise his eyes, but just stretched out his hand. So leading hand. Suddenly a strange suction emanated from Kinluo's palm. The Earth Demon, who turned into mud, had no room for resistance and was directly sucked into Kinluo's hand. As the suction gradually increased, the Earth Demon's body turned into a human form again. He struggled painfully, and his earth-yellow eyes were full of fear. Chapter 123 Kill the Three Demons. Like father, like son, the Earth Demon struggled desperately. He wanted to escape from Kinluo's control, but how could he do it with his weak power? What frightened the Earth Demon even more was the terrible suction. Not only did it absorb the power of hell in his body, but it also shook his soul. There was no hell power to fill it. If even the soul was destroyed, it would be really fatal. Master Wu Zin Demon save me save me. The voice of the Earth Demon sounded as if he was about to die. Instantly, the faces of Wu Zin Demon, Water Demon and Wind Demon all changed. They could expect that the Earth Demon would lose, and they would not be too surprised if Kinluo killed the Earth Demon. But the other party just raised his hand so casually to subdue the Earth Demon. They didn't even feel what strength the other party used. This is a bit scary. Wu Zin Demon felt a little numb on his scalp, and the situation was completely out of his control. Retreat. With a low shout from Wu Zin Demon, this guy turned into a wisp of black smoke first and disappeared on the spot. Then the Wind Demon turned into a gust of wind, and the Water Demon turned into a pool of liquid and fled. TSK, it seems that your companions are not so good, just abandoning you like this. Kinluo grabbed the Earth Demon with a fake smile on his face. "Let me go, please, let me go. I am willing to sign a soul contract and be a slave." The Earth Demon begged bitterly at this time, as if he had a last breath, and his voice was surprisingly coherent. "I'm sorry, you don't deserve it," Kinluo said, and his blood power suddenly increased. In an instant, the body of the Earth Demon shrank sharply, and soon turned into a ball of dust and fell to the ground from Kinluo's hand. At the same time, the ghost mark on Kinluo's ghost hand lit up. The soul of the Earth Demon was instantly swallowed up by the 7 ghosts. Chapter 346. Now that he appeared, the butterfly wings have begun to flap. Don't forget that the power in Thor's hammer has almost been absorbed by Kinluo. No one can guarantee that Thor will not be weak in the middle of the journey. Maybe by then Odin will not be able to save his son in time. In order to ensure that everything is foolproof, Kinluo did not delay in New York for long, and stepped on the flying sword and started to return directly. However, just as he passed by his home, Kinluo's brows frowned slightly. He sensed a wrong breath in his home. This breath belongs to the devil. It is the kind of very pure devil breath. There is even a little taste of Mephisto. There is also a smell of blood and death. Kinluo couldn't help but murmur in his heart. No way, Mephisto has come back so soon? Is it a bit too fast? And this guy came directly to the door. Could it be that this time it is the real body? Kinluo's heart sank slightly, but he was more excited. Now his 4 series ghost sword abilities have all awakened. Both the awakening passive and active skills are quite powerful. Moreover, during this period of time, he has already digested all his own strength. Even if Mephisto's body comes, There is nothing to be afraid of. The seventh ghost god Brashu alone is enough to make Mephisto drink a pot, not to mention other awakening skills. However, the only thing that makes Kinluo unable to let go is the geographical location. If a battle with Mephisto's body occurs here, I am afraid that the whole New York will be reduced to ruins. Tony, Ethan, Pepper and Spider-Man are all here. Who knows who will be injured by mistake at that time, especially Ethan and Pepper. They are both ordinary people with no power. When facing danger, even with the help of Tony and Spider-Man, there is no guarantee that there will be no accidents. Moreover, this is Kinluo's home. He is a very nostalgic person and will not move his old nest easily. He doesn't want his home to be reduced to ruins after a battle. After thinking about it secretly in his heart, Kinluo decided to go down and explore the truth first. Even if a battle really happens, Mephisto must be led away. Anyway, it is absolutely impossible to start a war on this land. Kinluo flew on the sword, and through wave perception and mind eyes, he quickly found the source of the devil's breath. After landing, Kinluo frowned more tightly, and his face became a little ugly. He finally knew where the bloody and deadly breath came from. There were more than 10 corpses piled together. There were not many residents in the apartment where Kinluo lived. After all, the location was relatively remote, and it was not convenient to go to the city center. So there were only 8 or 9 families living here, at that time. Because of SHIELD, many tenants were driven away or temporarily ordered to leave. Later, Kinluo's relationship with SHIELD was strained. The people of SHIELD naturally left the apartment. In this way, there were only 7 or 8 families left in the apartment that came and went, and now those families are almost all lying here. In other words, except for Kinluo, May Parker and Spider-Man, all the humans in this apartment have been slaughtered. Not only that, their blood has been drained at this time. The blood formed a scarlet inverted pentagram pattern on the land. Judging from the remaining vitality of these people, Kinluo can be sure that they have not been dead for a long time. At most, it is just over an hour. At that time, Kinluo was accompanying Tony to find the videotape left by his father. It is said that distant relatives are not as good as close neighbors. Although Kinluo has no intersection with these neighbors, he has at least met them a few times. They can barely be regarded as acquaintances who nod. Now so many acquaintances have fallen in front of him, and they all look like they are dead. How can Kinluo remain indifferent? His heart was burning with anger, and his eyes became colder and colder. The devil's breath came from the inverted pentagram. Obviously, this inverted pentagram was drawn to summon demons. As for the existence of the painting and the slaughter of these innocent people, Kinluo also had a rough idea in his mind. Just now, his perception was all attracted by this pure demonic power. He did not notice that there were 2 or 3 weak hybrid breaths in it. It's those damned bastard demons again. It seems that I didn't kill them last time. Kinluo secretly made up his mind. After today, there will be no more half-demons in the whole New York City. Anyway, he has been fighting with Mephisto, the Lord of Hell, and there is no need for a reason to kill a few of his minions. However, at this moment, the inverted pentagram on the ground began to flicker with a faint luster. The breath of hell became thicker. The whole land began to rise with a faint black and red mist, as well as the unique sulfur smell of hell. Kinluo squinted his eyes, holding the ancient dagger in his hand. He stared at the activated inverted pentagram on the ground motionlessly. Now he can basically be sure that it will definitely not be Mephisto who appears. After all, if you want to summon a big boss of that level, the sacrifice of these few people alone is definitely not enough. But it must be related to Mephisto. Kinluo also wants to know what kind of demon dares to make trouble. Chapter 122 4 demons appear. The name of Exorcist. The light of the inverted pentagram gradually became brighter, and the surrounding fog also surged at this moment. Those fogs seemed to have life. They actually rushed towards Kinluo, but before they could touch Kinluo, they were slashed by the protective sword energy around him and dissipated completely. Bang! The inverted pentagram on the ground suddenly exploded. The strange fog around it shrank rapidly. It was at this time that Kinluo clearly sensed 4 demonic auras emerging from the fog. 3 of the demonic auras were more mixed, and they were only a little stronger than the hybrids. They should not be considered as powerful demons. However, the attributes in their bodies are quite special. Kinluo clearly sensed 3 different attributes of earth, wind, and water. It was really strange to feel this attribute from the human world from these hell demons. As for the last demon, his aura was very pure. It was also the first demon aura Kinluo sensed, a demon aura with a bit of Mephisto flavor. Through this information, Kinluo probably guessed the identities of the 4 demons who came. Although he knew that Mephisto would not show up, Kinluo still had a glimmer of hope in his heart. Chapter 347. If you believe me, go and see your father's relics. I think he has left you the answer. Friendly reminder. This relic is likely to be some kind of videotape. Kinluo stood up and patted Tony on the shoulder. If we look at the original plot, the key videotape should be in the hands of S.H.I.E.L.D., but with Tony's father's intelligence, how could he leave only one copy of such a key thing? Tony must have another copy of the same videotape, but with Tony's personality, it is estimated that he has long lost it to some unknown place. Kinluo's move is considered to have completely intercepted Nick Fury's beard. Kinluo couldn't help but look forward to it secretly. If Nick Fury appeared in front of Tony, who had already mastered the new element, with the key videotape in the future, what kind of scene would it be? I wonder if Nick Fury would be embarrassed to the point of picking his feet. But think about it, with the thick skin of the boiled egg, it is estimated that it will not be too embarrassed. I guess he will only hate Kinluo, the person who interfered. After a struggle between heaven and man, Tony let out a long sigh. He stood up, without changing his blood-stained clothes, and walked straight to the room in the corner. Kinluo followed him naturally. He followed Tony into 2 rooms in a row. He came to a darker secret room. There were many old things placed inside. Judging from the dust on them, this secret room may not have been visited for many years. Tony's relationship with his father was really stiff. It can even be said that it was not much better than a stranger. Of course, these are just what Tony thinks. Howard had his own difficulties in everything he did. There was no way his identity was too special, except for the endless scientific research. His excessive contact with Tony would not bring any benefits to Tony except for the danger. Until the final death, the relationship between the 2 fathers and sons did not ease. After Howard died, Tony piled his father's relics in a corner. He didn't take another look. As Tony sorted out the relics, he soon found the key videotape from the messy relics. In fact, there were quite a few videotapes in the relics. They were randomly piled up in the relics. The reason why Tony was able to find it so accurately was because there was a hidden mark on this tape that only he and his father knew. This mark was very special, and even Kinluo didn't find any clues. But Tony recognized it at a glance. Kinluo's guess was right. In order to prevent accidents, Howard Stark made 2 copies of this key videotape. One was left to S.H.I.E.L.D., the other was left in the relics he gave to Tony. In order to prevent S.H.I.E.L.D. from making mistakes, he mixed and scrambled many useless videotapes and left special marks on this key videotape. Unfortunately, the only thing Howard Stark didn't expect was that Tony would be so distant from him that he didn't even look at his relics. If it weren't for Kinluo's reminder, I'm afraid that this tape will be completely submerged in the ruins as the future enemies attack Tony's mansion. Tony grabbed the tape and clenched his fist with his other hand. He still didn't speak. He picked up the old player from Howard's relics and played the videotape. I have to say that the quality of this player is really good. It has not been used for so many years, but it can still operate and successfully play the videotape. Tony, my best creation is you. The videotape was played quickly. Tony's face changed several times, and finally became completely sluggish, in front of him. With the help of Jarvis, the combination of his father's so-called future exhibition map architecture finally combined into a new element, the isotopic element of the cosmic cube. Tony stared at the new element in front of him. His eyes turned red. He turned around and looked at Kinluo. He really wanted to ask how Kinluo knew the secret of this videotape. Why did he know it? And why did he know his father's secret better than himself? But in the end he still didn't ask these questions. He knew very well the mystery of Kinluo. There were many things that Kinluo seemed to know in advance, but he never gave any answers, so he knew that it was useless to ask. Finally, Tony looked at Kinluo, smiled and said, "Kinluo, you are right. My father is indeed more authoritative than me. He is the authority in this field. Now I will use my father's medicine to save my life. Thank you." Kinluo smiled slightly and patted Tony on the shoulder. "Then I wish you good luck, but I have a small suggestion for you. You may ask Ethan to help you." After that, Kinluo left Tony's mansion directly, but before leaving, Kinluo left Tony with the ghost and god array of Kazan, the soul of sword. Good people should be good to the end, and send Buddha to the west. I believe that with the help of the ghost and god array, with Tony's intelligence, it will not take long for him to be completely reborn. Tony looked at the orange-red figure in the sky, and his own strange changes. A smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Looking at Kinluo's back, he pursed his lips and finally whispered 2 words. "Thank you." He said this "thank you" more seriously than ever before. After saying that, Tony's expression became firm. While contacting Ethan, he first started to make new elements. Chapter 121 Demonic Breath. Reverse Pentagram. Kinluo left Tony's mansion. First, he sent a text message to Pepper to report that he was safe. Then he called May Parker and told him about Spider-Man and Tony's affairs. After confirming that everything would be safe, May Parker finally breathed a sigh of relief. After learning from May Parker that there were no accidents near the town, Kinluo breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. The key to going to watch the excitement this time was that he hadn't seen Thor yet, even though his gains were already quite rich. Not to mention that all 4 systems were awakened. He also comprehended a level 60 skill. But who would dislike that their gains were small? In fact, Kinluo really regretted it a little at that time. If he had contacted Thor while chasing the big boss, he would have contacted Thor. It's not like now. I'm afraid that Thor will cause trouble in advance. In the original book, Thor killed the destroyer after the explosion, but he went back to clean up the mess directly with the Rainbow Bridge. If I miss Thor this time, then the next time he appears, I have to wait until the New York War. In fact, Kinluo was still a little worried about Thor's safety, although with Odin's ability, the possibility of Thor being killed by Loki is almost zero. But it's better to be safe than sorry. Chapter 348. At first, he was quite interested and studied it carefully, but in the end, he still failed to come up with a solution. In the end, he gave up. Tony picked up the wine glass in front of him, and suddenly he could smell a strong aroma of wine. When Kinluo was developing the wine for the gods, he wanted to try it, but he was stopped by Kinluo, and he didn't even smell the wine. Seriously speaking, Tony really didn't believe that such a little bit of wine could be better than chlorophyll, which is specially used to relieve palladium poisoning. But whether it is useful or not, this wine is really fragrant. It must taste quite good, but who can drink this little bit of wine? Looking at the pitiful wine that doesn't even reach the bottom of the glass, Tony said with dissatisfaction, "Kinluo, are you a little too stingy? I think I can drink your glass." Tony pointed to the small half glass of wine in front of Kinluo. "Drink to death. Do you think that I can drink this wine casually? That is enough for you. Drinking more will not help." Kinluo rolled his eyes at Tony. The materials of the wine are many precious medicinal materials. In addition, the secret technique is added. For those who have the wine god spell, the wine is a helper to guide the power. For ordinary people, the wine is an extremely tonic wine. It can even be said that most people can't bear the strength of the wine. Many times, too much tonic can really kill people. If Tony's body is not weak to a certain extent now, this little wine is too much for him. Seeing Kinluo's appearance, Tony curled his lips and didn't say anything more. Now he is much calmer than before. Maybe Tony himself doesn't know that when facing Kinluo, his mood is always much more relaxed than usual. It's good to lean against the big tree to enjoy the shade. Tony picked up the little wine and drank it directly. Speaking of this divine wine, it is also magical. It is clearly in liquid state, but it does not stick to the cup or the wall. There is no waste at all, and it all goes into Tony's mouth. Tony smacked his lips and just wanted to feel the deliciousness of this divine wine. However, at this moment, Tony felt as if he was burning. His whole body turned red, like a cooked prawn. Opening his mouth, Tony could clearly see the hot air coming out of his mouth. Now he finally believed what Kinluo said. If he really let him drink Kinluo's glass of wine, I'm afraid he would be burned now. Water, water, give me water. Tony stretched out his hand, looked at Kinluo, and said these words painfully. However, Kinluo was not moved at all, just quietly observing Tony's body. He was waiting for the medicinal power of the divine wine to spread thoroughly in Tony's body. About half a minute or so, just when Tony was stimulated by the burning sensation of his internal organs and was about to go crazy, Kinluo moved, and the blood in his body surged, reaching out and pressing on Tony's forehead. Blood and chi diversion. A red light rose from Kinluo's palm and directly merged into Tony's body. In an instant, Tony felt that the heat in his body began to subside rapidly, and was replaced by a warm feeling. This warmth made him feel very comfortable. Since he was poisoned by the palladium element, he has never felt so comfortable. It even made him feel a little addicted. Soon the warm feeling faded, and Tony opened his eyes. At this moment, he felt that the world was bright, and his body had an unprecedented sense of relaxation. The palladium element made the reactions produced by his body disappear without a trace. At the same time, Tony felt a dampness on his chest. He looked down and saw that his casual suit had been infected by a black liquid. Not only that, there was also a pool of the same black liquid under his feet. This liquid had an indescribable fishy smell, a bit like the smell of blood, but not so pure. In short, it was very disgusting. Tony was not a fool. Feeling his physical condition, plus these black liquids, he could probably guess what was going on. Tony took out the palladium element detector. He immediately tested himself. Ding! Congratulations, sir. The current palladium content in your blood is 0%. Jarvis' voice sounded. Tony inexplicably had a dreamlike feeling. It was 65% before, and even after the overspeed flight, the poisoning situation was likely to reach more than 70%. As a result, it is now directly cleared. No wonder he feels so relaxed, healthy feeling. So good. Kinluo also nodded with satisfaction at this time. It seems that his idea is right. Using the blood and chi power of blood and chi diversion plus the strong medicinal effect of the inducing wine, the poisonous blood in Tony's body was forced out. I am really a genius. You guy, how did you do it? Tony's face flushed with excitement, and his whole spirit have undergone a great change. There is no longer the depressed look before. Why are you so happy? This is just a temporary solution. As long as the arc reactor is still there, you will be poisoned by palladium sooner or later. Therefore, replacing new elements can fundamentally solve the problem. Kinluo rolled his eyes and poured a basin of cold water on Tony's head. Tony was instantly chilled. He looked at Kinluo with some resentment. Kinluo, do you think I don't know this problem? Can't you let me be happy for a while? It's not too late to be happy when you are cured. Hearing Kinluo's words, Tony rubbed his temples with a headache and said, what you said is simple. Do you think the replacement element is so easy to find? It's not that I haven't tried it during this period. Now I have combined the known elements countless times, but none of them can replace palladium. None. Tony said this with a hint of despair and distress. If possible, who would be willing to endure the torture of palladium? He really had no way out. Nothing is absolute, even you. It's not absolute. In fact, you still have a combination of elements that you haven't tried, and that element is the key. Kinluo looked at Tony with a serious face and said. Tony pondered for a moment, and his hand slid randomly in the air. Of course, this is just what others see. Tony was trying to combine those elements at this time. Kinluo didn't interrupt, but just watched with interest. Chapter 120 Father's Relics. Cosmic Cube Isotope Elements. About 10 minutes. Tony put down his hands dejectedly. Absolutely no. You know, I am an authority in this regard. That's not necessarily true. Authority figures can also be negligent, and there are people who are more authoritative than you. When Kinluo said this, a half-smile appeared on his face. Impossible. Who is it? Tony looked unconvinced. Your father. Kinluo said these two words. It was like a bolt from the blue, which made Tony stand there. A vague figure emerged in his mind. That figure was always so busy that Tony even forgot what his face looked like. Kinluo, this joke is not funny at all. Tony frowned. His expression was indescribably complicated. How many times do you want me to say that I will never joke about this kind of thing? The future elements researched by your father Howard Stark can completely solve your problem. Chapter 349. Enough. I've had enough. Tony, I'm officially telling you now. Officially telling you, Pepper rudely interrupted Tony, who was about to explain, but she couldn't continue speaking halfway through her words. The grievance in her heart burst out instantly, and tears fell as if they were free. Tony felt powerless when he saw Pepper like this. He wanted to comfort her and explain, but he couldn't open his mouth. However, at this moment, a somewhat teasing voice sounded. "Yo, you guys are quite lively here." Hearing this voice, the three of them raised their heads almost at the same time, just in time to see Kinlawo sitting cross-legged on the flying sword and slowly falling. "Asshole, you still know how to come back. Hurry up, take this kid away." Tony was delighted to see Kinlawo at first, but then he was replaced by anger. He pointed at the little spider not far away and said with dissatisfaction. The little spider, who was also a little happy to see Kinlawo, drooped his head instantly when he heard Tony's words. "Tony, I just came back to see you. Your condition seems to be a little bit wrong." Kinlawo did not respond, but looked at Tony meaningfully and said. At the same time, Jarvis's voice rang in Tony's ears. "Sir, Mr. Kinlawo is scanning your body with an unknown force, and it cannot be shielded. This force is naturally a wave perception." "Kinlawo, you bastard, stop it." Tony immediately became anxious and pointed at Kinlawo and shouted in panic. Chapter 118. Tony, you are sick. Pepper and Spider-Man have never seen Tony lose his composure like this. They were all shocked. Even Pepper, who was also furious, was suppressed by Tony's momentum. After being frightened, Spider-Man was more curious. He wanted to know what Kin's meaningful look was. "Mr. Stark, why did you have such a big reaction?" However, Kinlawo was not moved at all by Tony's roar. He frowned and carefully sensed Tony's physical condition. Unexpectedly, Tony's physical condition has become so serious now. "Now I'm afraid that chlorophyll can't relieve his symptoms. If nothing unexpected happens, this guy can only live for a month at most." Even more seriously, Tony may have to see Mephisto in less than a month. Thinking of this, Kinlawo couldn't help but feel moved. A genius like Tony must have a good soul. Maybe he can really lead Mephisto out. Of course, Kinlawo was just thinking about it. It's not worth it to consume a Tony to lead Mephisto out. Tony was overwhelmed by all kinds of emotions at this time, otherwise he would definitely see Kinlawo's weird eyes. "Kinlawo, you bastard, what on earth are you?" "Tony, I think we should talk, otherwise, your affairs may be known to many people." Kinlawo interrupted the angry Tony, and glanced in the direction of Pepper with the corner of his eyes. Feeling Kinlawo's gaze, Tony was instantly grasped by Kinlawo. He gasped and calmed his anxious heart. Due to palladium poisoning, Tony's body has become weak to a certain extent, and his breathing is very labored, just like the broken bellows from decades ago. "Tony, what's wrong with you?" Little Pepper is not a fool. After hearing the conversation between Kinlawo and Tony's weird appearance, she immediately thought of Tony's recent performance. Tony must be hiding something from her, and this matter is definitely related to his body. But what exactly is wrong with Tony? Little Pepper's mood has become anxious. It is hard for her to imagine what a blow it would be to her if Tony disappeared from this world one day. Tony did not answer Little Pepper's words, but just waved his hand. Then he turned around, glared at Kinlawo fiercely, and sat directly on the flying sword. Now the situation of palladium poisoning is getting more and more serious, unless it is necessary, such as Little Pepper is in danger. Otherwise, Tony will not use the power of the armor if he can. Now there is a free flying sword ride, why not? Kinlawo smacked his lips when he saw this, and didn't say much. After all, Tony's situation was special now. If it weren't for his illness, Kinlawo would have kicked him down long ago. After all, this was Kinlawo's airshock tool. How could he let others get involved? "Potts will let Peter take you back later. Don't worry, believe me. I promise that I will give you a normal Tony in no time." Seeing the worried and anxious look on Pepper's face, Kinlawo comforted her softly, and at the same time used a little trick of the Kinkson mantra. The mood of the three people who heard his voice became a little relieved at this moment. Pepper looked at Kinlawo, then looked at Tony sitting on the flying sword, and finally chose to believe Kinlawo. After all, Kinluo's performance has always seemed so incredible to her. It can even be said that there are many powers, just like the legendary gods. Seeing that Pepper was so considerate, Kinluo showed a smile on his face. As for Spider-Man, he wanted to speak, but he couldn't say it when he got to his lips. Based on his past experience, if he interrupted at this moment, he would most likely get a set of the most terrifying Dragon Country history exercises. Kinluo waved to the two of them, then he flew into the air on his sword and flew towards Tony's mansion. The two of them were silent all the way. Tony sat on the edge of the flying sword, looking at the scenery below, his eyes slightly dull. The blue-black meridians in the blood vessels were spreading slowly and silently at this time, and had already spread all over his neck. It looked so hideous and scary. It was just covered by the battle armor, so others couldn't see it. After entering the mansion, Kinluo skillfully took out 2 cups from the wine cabinet. As for those so-called famous wines, Kinluo didn't take a second look. There was no way, for a man who had tasted the wine of the gods. These ordinary good wines were no different from sweet water to Kinluo. It was even not as delicious as sweet water. Tony, you are sick. Kinluo put the 2 cups on the table and looked at Tony and said, "What nonsense. You have already scanned my body. How can you cure it?" Tony curled his lips in dissatisfaction, took out a bag of chlorophyll that he had prepared long ago and was about to pour it into the wine glass. However, Kinluo stopped him with his hand, and he looked at Tony with a serious face. "I can cure it." Tony's expression froze instantly. Then he threw the chlorophyll out and grabbed Kinluo's wrist, like the last straw for a drowning man. He stared at Kinluo. His eyes turned red because of congestion. "Kin, you'd better not be joking. You should understand my situation. I can't stand jokes now." "Of course, I never joke about this kind of thing. In fact, your problem is not a difficult thing," Kinluo said, and took out a special metal wine gourd with his other hand, and poured a little of the wine into each of the wine glasses. Of course, the wine in Tony's glass was really just a little bit. It was probably about a dozen milliliters. Tony looked at the slightly deformed wine gourd, and then at the wine in the cup. His expression became a little strange and puzzled. "What did you do to this wine jug to make it transform into this shape? And you are not saying that these wines can cure my physical problems?" Kinluo looked at the wine jug that turned into a crooked neck gourd, and shook his head helplessly. The power of the wine god spell was still too great. Even this kind of special wine gourd has transformed into this. It seems that there is a chance to go to Black Panther to get some vibranium. The vibranium wine gourd should be able to hold it. These wines can't cure your disease, but they can relieve your physical condition. At least it is much better than your chlorophyll. Kinluo shrugged his shoulders and put the wine gourd back into the inventory. Chapter 119 Two-Pronged Approach. Palladium element cleared. Tony was no longer surprised by Kinluo's means of taking objects and collecting objects remotely. Chapter 350. He was in a very bad mood. He had said it repeatedly in the parliament. He was the only one who had the technology of the arc reactor. But now Ivan Vanko popped up. It was obvious that he had mastered this technology. This matter might be very difficult to handle. Tony was confused for a moment, and all kinds of things made him very irritable. Even when he looked at Ivan Vanko, also known as Whiplash, he felt a surge of murderous intent in his heart. Whiplash was quiet at this time. It was just that pale face and resentful and vicious eyes made people feel very uncomfortable. There was a chilling feeling. Spider-Man and Whiplash sensed Tony's murderous intent at the same time. Even with the mask blocking it, it was very obvious. Spider-Man hurried over to grab Tony's arm, signaling him not to be impulsive. "Ha ha ha ha!" Whiplash suddenly laughed. His laugh was very sarcastic, and even mixed with a bit of madness. "Tony Stark, kill me. You, the victor, just kill me. No one will know the ugliness, stench, and hateful faces of your family anymore. Kill me." Whiplash roared, and seemed to want to struggle a few times to show his presence. However, because the spider silk was too tightly wrapped, the seriously injured Whiplash could not be shaken at all. Even the spider silk did not even tremble. Tony felt the veins on his forehead bulging when he heard it. Without saying a word, he raised his arm and aimed the palm cannon at Whiplash's face. "Do you really think that I dare not kill you?" Tony's cold voice sounded, and the murderous aura suddenly increased. However, at this moment, a voice familiar to countless people sounded. Beep woo Chapter 117 Whiplash's Death. Kinlawo's appearance. The sharp and familiar siren sound. It can be heard almost every day in New York City. It's just that they usually show up on time after things are over. However, it was this siren that made Tony, who was full of murderous intent, regain some clarity. Fuck these guys. Nothing can be done to them. It's only a few kilometers away. But they took so long. They came out only after seeing me, he complained unhappily. Tony was too lazy to argue with those guys. He grabbed the little spider beside him and flew straight into the sky. He flew towards the place where Pepper was hiding. In a monitoring room somewhere, a middle-aged man with gold-rimmed glasses patted his chest immediately after seeing Tony leave. He was relieved. Looking at the whip rope tied into a human-shaped cocoon, his eyes were full of greed. With this person, it's equivalent to mastering the technology of the arc reactor. Tony Stark is nothing. The world will surrender to him. However, in the next second, the face of the man with gold-rimmed glasses froze. The beautiful fantasy in his heart was completely shattered. Because the whiplock's head exploded, it exploded silently. There was no sign or any power. It just exploded. Damn Tony Stark. Damn bastard. Selfish. Bug. The man with gold-rimmed glasses roared angrily. His eyes turned blood red, and the remote control in his hand hit the monitoring screen heavily, smashing the screen to pieces. This weird scene, he naturally blamed Tony. In the monitoring room of S.H.I.E.L.D., Nick Fury, the egghead, was so gloomy when he saw the death of Whiplash that he almost dripped water. His Avengers plan is a link against Tony. The existence of Whiplash can be said to be a more important link. Because of Kinlawo, S.H.I.E.L.D's contact with Tony is much less than the original plan, and the good impression of S.H.I.E.L.D. is much lower. Originally, Nick Fury was excited for a while when he learned that Tony was poisoned by palladium. This is an opportunity for Tony to join the Avengers. After all, he has the new element that can make Tony heal. According to the original plan, he can give the new element to Tony now, but the current situation is not clear. So Nick Fury, who always seeks to play it safe, is going to do something with Whiplash. Tony will have to deal with it, and then S.H.I.E.L.D. will come to his rescue. Everything will be back on track. However, who would have thought that something unexpected would happen again? Whiplash is dead. His death was very strange. Silently, it would be strange if Nick Fury's face could look good. After a little thought, there are only a handful of people in New York City who can have such power. And the person with the greatest suspicion, it is Kinlawo. Nick Fury immediately picked up the communicator and sent a message to Coulson and others who were dealing with the hammer in the western town. He wanted to know whether Kinlawo was still in the western town at this time. Nick Fury's perception is still quite sharp. The person who took action was none other than Kinlawo, who rushed over. In fact, Kinlawo arrived when Spider-Man and Whiplash were fighting. He just didn't take action. After shielding himself, he happily watched such a big show in the sky. But he didn't expect that the father and son, Spider-Man and Tony, didn't kill the whip rope. Kinlawo was helpless. Spider-Man was the same. Did he forget that he not only taught him to stay calm, but also taught him to root out the problem? It's okay that the little one is ignorant, but Tony actually let the tiger go back to the mountain, fearing that his own troubles are not enough. There is no way. Kinlawo can only be the executioner himself. He doesn't want to let such a mad dog-like guy come out to make trouble again. Mr. Peter, I think you should give me an explanation why you acted on your own and went to fight that dangerous guy alone. Flying to the ground, Tony's mask rose, and there was no sadness or joy on his face. But from this, it can be heard that Tony's mood at this time is not beautiful. Of course, he didn't blame Spider-Man for not protecting Pepper. It was mainly because of the problem of Spider-Man taking risks alone. It's no exaggeration to say that Tony is still sweating on his back. He is really afraid that Spider-Man will have problems, especially when the other party is completely coming for him. Now everything is fine. If anything goes wrong, how should he explain it to Kinlawo and May Parker? Spider-Man's body trembled, and what was supposed to come finally came. This. Spider-Man lowered his head, and didn't say a word for a long time, his heart full of uneasiness. He was afraid that Tony would go to buy those 100 tons of exercises. Enough, I've really had enough. Tony, you blame the child? Peter is trying to help you clean up the mess. What on earth are you thinking? However, at this moment, an extremely angry voice rang out. I saw Pepper coming over from not far away, and the whole person was as angry as a burning lioness. Gulp. Even Tony, seeing Pepper's appearance, felt his throat dry and couldn't help swallowing his saliva. Needless to say, Spider-Man. The little guy lowered his head and trembled like a quail. Pots. About this matter. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.